Buckle up your seatbelts, boys and girls, because you're in for a trip. This is Skull Babylon, and you're about to listen to episode 63 of Paradigm Shift Radio. On this episode, we welcomed on Laura Eisenhower, great-granddaughter of Dwight D. Eisenhower, who is very outspoken on a variety of topics that you won't hear anytime soon on the 6 o'clock news, such as information related to hidden agendas that expand beyond our immediate government and potentially beyond our immediate race. Why is the natural progression of our human evolution being repressed? How is this happening? Are there really humans living on other planets? Is time travel real? And most importantly, what can we do within this matrix to step into our power and rise above the influences of these hidden agendas? With so much information coming through, we encourage you to keep an open mind and just allow the information to sit with you over time. Paradigm Shift Radio is a place for us as consciousness to practice having these conversations, and most importantly, to practice listening to each other as well, as we move towards collective education and inspiration. Tinfoil hats aside, there's an infinite amount of topics to discuss. If you're new to PSR, you can browse the archives at paradigmshiftcentral.com/PSR and even listen and download past episodes for your mobile devices to take Paradigm Shift Radio wherever you need to go. In addition to all the free content, show your support and sign up for a Paradigm Shift Radio Plus membership to receive access to the evolving bonus content in the works to add even more shift to your day. Go to paradigmshiftcentral.com/PSR Plus. Like the show at facebook.com/Paradigm Shift Radio. Continue the conversation with your friends, be a part of the shift, and enjoy the show. Reality. It's not only stranger than you suppose, it's stranger than you can suppose. A great man by the name of Terence McKenna once says that, but tonight we're going to challenge that idea. We're going to just see how much of this reality that we can comprehend and suppose, and that's definitely going to be on the agenda in terms of hidden agendas, which is tonight's topic here on Paradigm Shift Radio. Thank you once again, everybody, for tuning in. I'm your co-host, Skull Babylon, and if you have not heard of Paradigm Shift Radio before, then you're in for a treat. This is something that we do every week on behalf of ParadigmShiftCentral.com, which is the main website that you can go and check out and find tons and tons of other inspirational media that has been put out over the last 5 years as part of this global paradigm shift project, which is about a bunch of people who are creating communities all across the world, paradigm shift communities, and are doing what they can to help bring more love into it and to help create space for conversation so that we can practice talking about the things that we don't normally get a chance to talk about. And that is exactly what we'll be doing here tonight, perhaps more so than recently compared to just some of the stuff that I know we got lined up ahead of us. We're talking time traveling, we're talking Mars colonies, we're talking all sorts of really, really interesting stuff, and we'll be doing that tonight with our wonderful guest, Laura Eisenhower. So, of course, everybody, if you're tuned in to the show, please continue to boost it. That means sending it out to your friends and inviting them to tune into the show and to be a part of this discussion, to be a part of this act of consciousness, doing whatever it can to wake itself up. And as I said, my name is Skull Babylon, aka Brendon Wolfshield Culton, aka Skull the Wolf. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Skull Babylon and youtube.com/Skull Babylon. I'm a filmmaker, went to school for media theory and production, and I've been committing a lot of my time and effort towards creating consciousness shifting media. And if you have not checked it out yet, there's even some full-length movies that you can check out, and you can find those through paradigmshiftcentral.com/movies. So that includes the Journey to Lucidity, which is the most recent one. Got a lot of positive reviews out of that, as with the other ones, the Journey to Rockmont and Journey to the West. So if you haven't checked those out, feel free to check those out. And of course, facebook.com/paradigmshiftradio is a place that you want to go to get connected, to stay in touch with all of the episodes of Paradigm Shift Radio that are going to be happening in the future. And of course, if you want to go back and check out the past episodes, paradigmshiftcentral.com/PSR, the website has been newly updated and upgraded, and that has made it more accessible for you to be able to download the MP3s of any of the shows so that you can take Paradigm Shift Radio with you wherever you go. Personally, I know that I look forward to that time in the week when I get to listen to some of my favorite podcasts and audio content while out there doing what I'm doing during my regular day, and be it mowing the grass or chores or whatever. So everybody's got some time to fit this type of content into it. So again, if you are looking for the MP3s, go to that website and get hooked up and get connected. And if you haven't heard the episodes before, then obviously they're new to you. So without further ado, we will be bringing on Laura. But before we do that, we're actually going to be bringing on a special co-host for the episode, and that co-host is going to be Brianna. And Brianna has been on the episode before. She's actually in the Journey to Rockmont movie, plays a very pivotal role in that film as one of like the main focal points. So I'm really looking forward to having Brianna back on the show, and I'm sure a lot of you are looking forward to it as well. We'll have a nice trifecta of 3 people involved in this conversation. And of course, you, the audience, are part of this conversation as well. So throughout the episode, if you're listening to what we were talking about and you want some clarification, that's going to be a big theme with tonight's show. It's going to be about clarification. Feel free to ask some questions into the live chat or PM me privately through the live chat at the, and of course, if you're not even in the live chat, you can log into live chat really easily using the Facebook login method. So if you want to do that, it only takes a couple clicks, and we got 59 people in the live chat, so a big shout out to them. And again, just let me cover a little bit of ground here, and we'll bring Brianna on, then we'll bring Laura on. Just got to give a big shout-out to the Spirit Science and Metaphysics Facebook page. I know that they boosted the show. That's our good buddy Steve, who's doing an awesome job there. So if you haven't checked that out, check out facebook.com/Spirit Science and Metaphysics, one of the most popular pages on the Facebook community that is doing what it can to help provide those little packets of data, those little pictures with informational quotes and more information linked into them. So check those out and get your fill at facebook.com/Spirit Science and Metaphysics. So again, big shout out to everybody who is listening to the show through there. And I do have some other community news and some really exciting news, actually, but we're going to get to that later in the show. That will be in the second half, so stick around if you want to hear some of the updates about what I was up to last night, literally doing free hugs and buttoning. And I had some awesome experiences with that once again, and there was actually some gnomes. Like, I'm not joking. There's gnomes involved with this story. So if you want to find out about the gnomes that were involved with what happened last night, then stick around for the later half of the show, and I'll be giving out some tactics and just some field reports on how you too can use similar techniques to help engage with people in your community and to help wake them up. So, I mean, if people in your community, if you feel that they are having a hard time stepping outside of that bubble, and you feel like, oh, what's the point? There's no point in doing anything. I'm telling you that if you make that observation, that is all the more reason for you to get involved, for you to engage with people in your community, because everybody is a part of this reality. Everybody is on their own path, their own, what we sort of say here on Paradigm Shift Radio, it's not even just our saying, but the idea of one truth, many paths. So just being able to respect and just being able to do what you can to help refine yourself as an individual and to help elevate everyone and to help elevate other people along the way. So that's the goal. All right, so with that said, let's get right into the thick of the content here as we bring Brianna on and then Laura. So Brianna, if you are ready, we're going to bring you live here on the Paradigm Shift Radio. Here we go. Hello, Brianna.
Hello.
Ta-da.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Awesome. Perfect. All right, so Brianna, do you want to say hi before we just bring Laura on?
Okay, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna. I live in Michigan, and yeah, I'm happy to be on the show.
And also the admin for, I guess, our Paradigm. Well, is there a Paradigm Shift Michigan page specifically? There is. So yeah, you're doing stuff over there.
Yeah, very little stuff. I mean, we're building a community slowly, bit by bit, piece by piece. Making the puzzle pieces fit together.
Perfect. So if anybody's in the Michigan area, and check out and connect with Brianna, so you can do that. Is it facebook.com/Paradigm Shift Michigan? I'm just
we have a Paradigm
There's
Shift
a couple
Livonia
pages.
page, and we have a Paradigm Shift Metro Detroit page. So I know that there's a lot of people in Ann Arbor who really want to connect too.
All right. So, yeah, that would be the perfect thing to do is for anybody in either of those places to just get connected with Breezy and to help move things forward. And, of course, check out if there's a Paradigm Shift community in your area, paradigmshiftcentral.com/communities. Again, check out, literally, browse paradigmshiftcentral.com while listening to this radio show if you can multitask. I encourage you to do that. There's lots of awesome stuff on there. Okay, so thank you, Brianna, for being with us here tonight. I really look forward to having your voice involved with this conversation. So
I look forward to it as well.
Awesome. All right, it'll be exciting. Neither one of us can predict exactly what's going to happen here on tonight's show. All right, so Thank you, Laura, for being patient. And it is that time, so we're going to be bringing Laura Eisenhower onto the show. And in terms of introduction, one of the simplest ways that we can introduce Laura is stating the obvious, that she is the great-granddaughter of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was the president of America during the time of World War II. And I'm not exactly entirely sure of the duration of his time in office, but the one thing that I definitely... It's interesting. The one thing that I got out of just studying Dwight D. Eisenhower, he was one of the few presidents I was actually just drawn towards, and I definitely got the idea that he's a very of the heart. You can tell, like he's a very kind person and really cared about the people. And I think Laura steps into that role as well, and she's doing whatever she can to really help inspire people and also bring about information to the surface that is valuable. And that's what we'll be doing here tonight. And a lot of that is coming from personal experiences, and I'm sure we'll find out more about it. So without further ado, as I've said like numerous times, here is Laura Eisenhower. So Laura, if you're ready, we're going to bring you on to Paradigm Shift Radio. Here we go.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello.
Perfect.
Hi, Laura.
All right,
Hey, Brianna.
I'll tell you what, Laura, it's funny, and I just got to mention it because I observed it. After all that time, like, dawdling, I brought you on. Like, I didn't try to do this. I just did this. I brought you on with your hold time being at 11:11. So, hey, good omen right off the bat. Like honestly, it just happened. That's the type of stuff that happens when you start listening to Paradigm Shift Radio and get into the paradigm shifty stuff. So, all right, awesome. So, okay, with that said, Laura, would you like to just say hello and introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Laura Eisenhower, and I guess the one thing I call myself for sure is a global alchemist, so I'll just leave it at that.
Global alchemist. That's very good. And alchemy in itself is a term that is coming up here and now, and definitely something that is relative to what we'll be talking about tonight. Maybe we can just do that. Can you explain what you mean by alchemy and by global alchemist?
Yeah, I like that term. It's really all-encompassing.
Yeah, really.
Oh, yeah. Well, as we know, alchemy is all about turning lead into gold. And it's a process that people might know about through, maybe chemistry or things that don't really involve the soul, which is where I'm coming from. Soul alchemy, which in turn is global alchemy, because we are on the world soul. I mean, nature is the soul. The soul energy is made up of earth, air, fire, water. And the ego energy, the I am self, and where it's orientated determines the frequency and vibration that we are functioning at. And so when we align it to source energy, we are able to create a transmutation of the lower forces, and this is what soul alchemy is about. And on a physical level, it does wonders. And on a global level, of course, it's the shift that we're in right now. We're turning the lead of our experience into gold, and it's about our consciousness, really.
Yeah. Okay. So right there, if you weren't sure what to expect from the show tonight, that's just like the first taste of it. And Laura is just like a fountain of this kind of information. It's just full of gems. So one thing I will say is that with Paradigm Shift Radio, part of the goal that we like to keep in mind is the idea that people listening to the show could be anyone. We literally have like young children who listen to the show. We know that as a fact. Shout out to Diego for being on the show a couple episodes ago, and just keeping that in mind, that there's young kids listening to this episode and people who have never gotten into this stuff before. Part of our goal with Paradigm Shift Radio is to make this information accessible, is to, as I said earlier, to bring about clarity. So like I said, if anybody has any questions regarding stuff that we're talking about and just wants clarity, then feel free to message that in the live chat, but we'll kind of do that as we go along there. So again, Laura was talking a lot about like higher dimensional energies and this and that, and I think we'll get there later on as the conversation evolves, but maybe for now, let's just sort of stick to the third dimensional. Well, I mean, it does all branch off, but I mean, just in terms of the things that are seemingly more present, and within the theme of hidden agendas, I'll open that conversation up. So, Laura, what would you consider under the all-encompassing umbrella of hidden agendas? What are some hidden agendas that the people should know about?
Well, they're very deeply rooted, of course, in our ancient history. So to start from the very beginning would be pretty intense and it would probably flood people, but to just kind of start somewhere, I guess the best way to describe what the hidden agendas are about is obviously something that is so hidden from us that we don't realize it's happening, and then all of a sudden find ourselves in a trap or a dream catcher, I guess you could say, because we're dealing with a co-creation on a consciousness level. And so hidden agendas would seek to manipulate our consciousness and our minds and our behaviors and our relationships. And so the roots of those go so far back, and it has everything to do with domination and control. And it has everything to do with the nature of the negative ego. And so a person might call that energy Lucifer and maybe externalize it into a being or a figure. But what I like to do is to take full responsibility and encourage people to look at those forces within the self. And so the hidden agendas like to target areas of us that easily get led astray or fall into a lower vibration. And they do it through the media, through religion, through government, and through all sorts of things that we're seeing today with, you know, the chemtrails, with the geoengineering, and the things that are getting more and more obvious. But the bait was set a long time ago, kind of like the cheese for the mouse, and now we're sort of in the place of, well, are we going to eat the cheese? Is the trap going to snap our heads? Or are we going to recognize that there's a deception at play and we need to put our attention on the things that are really organic and real? So the hidden agendas relate to negative alien agendas. They relate to dark technologies, occult technologies, ritual abuse behind the scenes. I mean, the list goes on, and I don't want to kind of, you know, blow too many circuits to start with. But, yeah, there's just a lot there. So that's just a little bit of a glimpse to start with.
Right. Okay, so in terms of this show being something for the people, something we can get value out of, something that can help, you know, bring us onto the same page, I'll sort of throw it over to Brianna to sort of side this question. I mean, when we think of hidden agendas, and again, just, you know, stepping back just for a second here, like with Paradigm Shift Radio, this is actually one of the first times that we've actually kind of talked about things that would sort of fit under conspiracy theory, like in terms of like chemtrails and HAARP and stuff. Like we mentioned it, it's come up, but we haven't really honestly like gotten into it in the way that we're about to get into it. But the reason why we're getting into this is because by the time we finish this episode, I want people to be able to have a better picture, a better understanding of what the big picture is, like what's sort of going on, and then to be able to understand where we are within it, where you stand within it, and to be empowered in that process. And again, we'll evolve that as we go through the show. So maybe I'll just pass this over to Brianna then. Brianna, like as a question,
thank you.
What do you feel are some of like the quote unquote hidden agendas that you're familiar with that people would benefit from just being aware of?
All right, so I have a real love for conspiracy theories. That's something I've researched a lot, and I actually listened to a couple of your lectures, Laura, and a couple of your speeches on YouTube maybe like 6 hours ago, and this whole Syria thing has been a big topic of our media, and obviously it's almost a distraction, but it's also a sleight of hand. Like, I do believe that there's something in Syria that's probably important that we aren't being told about. But also, there's the issue of, like, oil and the petrodollar and all of that stuff, and how does that affect the spiritual community? And so I guess under the topic of hidden agendas, do you have any idea about Syria and what could be possibly going on there?
Well, anytime there's war, it usually has to do with a very powerful place on the planet, like a Stargate, and the Stargate energies, the
That's
natural Stargate. We're in this place right now where the natural Stargates are opening, and that's the biggest threat to them because they want to control the Stargates. And to make it a little bit less complicated, it's just like in our life, you know, where our ego wants to control or suppress our higher self and run the show, or in relationships we find, you know, some oppressive force, domination and control type agendas that we kind of play out because we are exposed to this stuff and we pick it up and unconsciously play this out. On a larger scale, on a macro level, this is what's happening on the Earth body. These places are under attack. It's all about taking down the energy, creating divide and conquer type scenarios so that the unification that's happening right now is crippled. And so they choose particular places on the planet to, you know, create these wars to prevent the energy flow that would be being released from those locations. And so we can counteract that because we're so connected to the womb chakra stargate energies on the planet that as long as we don't allow ourselves to get blocked and fall into mimicking it on a very unconscious level where we play it out in our relationships or in our relationship with ourselves, we can counteract it. Because really, at the end of the day, the target is on us, and we affect the Earth. The Earth responds to us. Right. And so this is where the game is. Mind control the people, get them caught up in the drama, and keep them from, the unity consciousness. But if we're privy to this and we understand it, then we can at least not allow ourselves to be the effect, which is a stronger vibration than what they're trying to do.
Okay, and let me bring this full circle for everyone. So for the last couple months, we've been talking about the rise of the divine feminine. And in my research, I've discovered that Egypt and Syria have been places where in the past the divine feminine has been worshipped in a very high regard. So it's really interesting to me that at the same time that we are bringing in this divine feminine energy, that all of a sudden Syria becomes this hot topic. And Syria is the last major oil-producing country that does not sell to the United States. We don't have any of their gold in our Federal Reserve. So I think it's really interesting that these two things are becoming really connected. And with the divine feminine energy coming in, this spiritual oneness, I do think that there is a hidden agenda in terms of taking down those stargates, taking down the grid that helps raise the consciousness of the planet. But I wanted to hear your take on where the divine feminine energy is right now.
Well, it's within all of us, and it is the planetary body. I don't feel that we are dealing with a real threat, except, and I don't want people to get upset, because I know that it's obvious that we're seeing it, but we have to understand that the consciousness of this planet is so powerful. The presence of the Sophia Gaia energy is so incredibly powerful. And a lot of what we're seeing is basically propagated to, I call it, and others have called it, dream warfare, to affect our consciousness and steer it away from what we should really be paying attention to. And so all these different scenarios are going to play out, and they're going to seem scary, and they're going to, really trigger us. But it's really about capturing our divine feminine essence and siphoning it into these artificial scenarios which they're setting up. And so whatever happens on the Earth body, yes, not good, but at the same time we're dealing with a multidimensional planet who's got higher Earth vibrations than the one that we're in. And if we stay stuck in this third density and we battle these forces and we become the effect of them and we're in fear and anger and protest, then we're missing the opportunity to embrace what's within us. And only we can give our free will away. What they try and do is manipulate it out of us. And this is what we're seeing. And so we have to understand that we are the Earth body, too, and we're the micro-representation of it. And so that's where the divine feminine energy is right now. It is the planetary body, but the planetary body is also dealing with the Earth Templars have been, in a sense, infiltrated by the archonic matrix. And the Earth has been captured many times. And it's in the process of moving into the light, and it's in the process of, and it has been, in alignment with the galactic core. So the energies are really, as best as they have been in so long, that it's important to understand the opportunity that's available compared to where we were before. But we can create our own nightmare by the imprints that have been placed upon us throughout our history. So this is the biggest issue, is to not allow those imprints to control us. And the news will keep wanting to reawaken a certain trauma that we've experienced with catastrophes in the past and Armageddon scenarios, so that we keep dreaming these scenarios in our own experiences, which assists them in creating this nightmare instead of us being in the dream time that we co-create on a collective level in the unified field. And so it's basically, and Andrew Bartzis has mentioned this, and I've put it in terms so similar that we almost use similar words, but I like his terminology so much, so some of the terms, the one that I'm saying now, he mentioned the other day, and I was like, yes, it's like a dream catcher, it's kind of like capturing us into this scenario and siphoning our energy away, but it doesn't take away the divine feminine of the planet. It just takes our relationship to it and throws it into the illusion of separation, and it robs us of our ability to understand how powerful and creative we are. And these people are just playing these games. You can look at it like Tinker Toys, or it's just, they're using toys and they're using tools that, yes, have a negative effect on our environment, but it's also to lock us into the 3D realm, to capture us into the war mentality, into the victimhood, into the oppression, and into the game, when we can easily bypass that and move to a higher experience. It's like when we're dreaming at night, the same thing happens. We can be captured into a negative vibration and find ourselves battling evil forces and wake up exhausted. But as soon as we understand the root of what keeps us locked in there, we start to realize that there's far greater dimensions. We have incredible abilities, and we can do unbelievable things in dream time. And so the earth body and us, when we embrace our divine feminine essence, is learning to re-embrace that co-creative ability and sort of leave this one behind. And this is what the bifurcation represents, is a splitting off, where there's going to be a dissension and sort of this artificial kind of technologically charged transhumanism existence, where souls who have not been able to wake up stay sort of immersed in that until they are able to experience enough in a holding tank of love and support from higher beings that are holding space to then move into the graduation timeline that so many of us are on, which is where we're splitting off, and that's where the organic ascension timeline is.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in. I feel I had to time that. Laura's just like on the ball. She's in the flow, and I think maybe I'll mention this now for anybody who would love to have the chance to meet Laura and see and hear Laura do a presentation that she's so commonly doing. You can see her at the expo in Detroit, the Awake and Empowered Expo, happening in October, and I'll post a link for that into the live chat. And I will mention that there is a special pricing for Paradigm Shift listeners, 50% off your tickets between now and September 20th if you use the code SHIFT, the promo code SHIFT, or if you select one of Laura's lectures, use the promo code LAURA. So that's some special inside information there that will get you guys in the know and get you guys connected, and hopefully have an awesome chance to be able to meet Laura in person when she's in Detroit. And Laura, just on that topic, and then we'll go back to what we were just talking about. Is there anything that you would just like to plug in terms of the Awake and Empowered Expo that you're a part of?
Yes, this is going to be an incredible conference in Detroit, Michigan. The dates are October 11th to 13th at the Cobo Center, and the website is aaeexpo.com. And lots of great presenters, me, Dr. Dream, Ethan Fox, Peter Garayev, I don't know if I'm saying that right.
Christina Foley-Raw.
Yes, Michael Tellinger as well, Mark Romero, Carrie Cassidy, Meredith Smith, and Gennady Shipoff, or Gennady. Very exciting. So check that out. Hopefully people will be in the area. And you can go on my website, and there's a discount code. And my website's cosmicgaiasophia.com.
Perfect.
And don't worry, guys. Detroit is safe, and this expo will definitely bring in some loving energies, some much-needed energy for Detroit. So support.
Yeah, Brianna, maybe you'll be there, right?
Actually, I'm going to 3 Days of Light. It's the same weekend.
Oh, within that same time. Okay, and with that mentioned, I will mention this, and you'll hear about it again later in another episode within next week, is the 3 Days of Light gathering and retreat that is happening again in Asheville, North Carolina. And you can go to, it's in Hot Springs, okay, which apparently it's a different place in Asheville because I don't know my geography. So Hot Springs, North Carolina is the place where that will be taking place. So 3dlgathering.com, and it's the number 3dlgathering.com. And again, go back and watch the Journey to Rockmont, and you'll get a feel for that awesome festival and what to expect from it. And we'll be having Scott Love on the show next week to talk about some more, and we'll also be having some chances for people to win some tickets. And actually, I'll just plug this right now, and then we'll get right back onto what we were talking about. If anybody would like a chance to win a free ticket to the 3DL Gathering, same thing we did last year, send a message to us on Facebook and just let us know that you want to be entered into the draw, and we'll add your name, and then we'll be pulling, and we might be pulling a free ticket next week. So that's an awesome opportunity. So again, just message us on facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio. So with that said, going back to what we were talking about, and a lot came out there, and in some way, I think what my role is within this episode is to sort of play the role of the naive listener, so to speak, because I think a lot of people who, again, might not be too familiar with a lot of this paradigm shifty stuff, a lot of what Laura was saying might just have been like information overload. So to bring it back a couple steps, one of the things that Laura mentioned, and when we were talking about like Syria and stuff, was the term Stargate came up, and that's a term that I love. I think it's a great concept, and there's a few ways to approach that topic. And one of the ideas is like the internal Stargate, like the third eye, the pineal gland, which can be used for like internal time travel and going through dimensions and everything like that. But I'll let Laura answer in her own words. Laura, when you say Stargate, can you clarify what exactly does that refer to?
Well, it's really what connects us to the higher dimensions. I mean, our chakra system is like that. We have a universal Templar complex with 12 universal stargates on the planet, and basically it also connects to our DNA. Our highest level of DNA actually is 12-strand and way beyond 12-strand. But when we think of ourselves in, human bodies or the, angelic human potential, 12-strand is that sort of beginning point, and then it, can begin to increase. And that connects to the stargates on the planet. And when these are opened, it basically lifts the veils. It opens us up, and it connects us to other dimensions without the need for major space travel. This is sort of an instant thing. And similar to teleportation and time travel, they utilize stargates in order to be able to do this. It connects to chakras, and it connects to the Earth stargates, it connects to our DNA.
So is there, based on like information that you're aware of, is there actually like something similar to what we see in the science fiction movie where it's literally like something you walk through, or is this like an internal process? Like are there external instruments involved in this teleportation Stargate process that you're referring to?
Well, there's always these externalized technologies, but our spiritual abilities are where they're basically inspired from. I mean, we're the most advanced technology. We're the free energy technology.
Yeah.
But we are dealing with a lot of technologies that mimic that, and that's what the archons are all about. They're mimickers. They're not originators. The originator energy would be source energy. The generators generate things like planets and galaxies and universes. But then the imitators would be the archons, and they're always trying to create replicas. And that's where the cloning technologies came in. And they're creating replicas of nature, of timelines, artificial stargates, and they're trying to create sort of this falsified version of all of it. But it's different when you're talking about higher level technologies, like free energy technology and technologies that are based on sound, color, and frequency. That's a lot different because it's connected to the resonance of our body and our energy field. Mm-hmm, but things like, the use of mind control is not working with the resonance of the body, and it's basically more connected to an agenda and, ringleaders or masters that pull puppet strings of our governments in order to capture us into this particular artificial scenarios that we are seeing and witnessing. Even though we witness it, it doesn't mean that we're on it. We get to witness it and talk about it like we are now so that we can avoid it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So
I just had a download about how that would work, though. So when you're meditating and you're doing this cool meditation thing, and if you can imagine, I don't know why, this blue light, and then if you imagine your spiritual body walking through this blue light, you can teleport somewhere, and so a place, a really spiritual place like Sedona or something, or Egypt, the pyramids in Egypt, if you go to those spiritual places, it'll ramp up your frequency and your energy, and so that you'll be more capable of walking through some sort of Stargate. I think that's how it was explained to me. I just had a bunch of images go through my head.
Right, and that's what the sacred sites are all about. And the body circuitry system, the nervous system are the grids. And so there's particular power points and energy ley lines that connect and hold a specific quality. Like Glastonbury, for example, is where the spiritual union of the masculine and feminine are. But at Stonehenge, they source out very negative technology to siphon energy away from us in order to get in the way of spiritual marriage and actually create a rift between the union within us. And they do it in a particular spot because that's the power point where spiritual union is. And so that's where it's targeted, is to break that apart. And that happened 26,000 years ago. We were targeted to not be able to really achieve sacred union within and in our personal relationships. And that's why people have such a tough time in relationships. And they're just but we have to understand that it's specifically been targeted, manipulated, and that's what the proportions of the masculine and feminine are that we see in the media and on television. And so if we buy into that programming, then, basically we don't notice. We think it's just being human, the way those dynamics play out, but they're not at all. The real masculine and feminine energies are completely different qualities than what we see, of course.
Okay. All right. Okay. Jumping in here. What I think I'm gonna do? Okay, I'm gonna sort of like almost play referee for this show, and the reason why I say that is within the best interest of everyone. So from here, I'm gonna set like a bit of a guideline, just I guess for anyone really, is to let's like try and keep our responses concise. I guess I would say, just because again, like I'm just thinking for the new listeners' sake, like this is gonna be one of those shows where if you're gonna want to go back and listen to it, perhaps a couple times to really get it. But I mean, even just going back to after when I talked about Stargates, you mentioned the term archons. Now, I mean, to someone who doesn't know any better, it sounds like we're just like talking about Star Trek and something like that. But then that opens up the idea of it's like, well, wait a second, maybe this life is a lot more like Star Trek in itself. So what I'll ask next, Laura, because I know the audience loves to hear this type of stuff, is the topic related to like ET and government interaction and how long has something like this theoretically been going on. So Laura, just maybe to like add a unique twist to this, when did you first become aware or start opening up to the idea of the possibility or quote unquote fact that the government has had interaction with quote unquote ETs? And maybe explain a little bit more about who these ETs are, such as the archons.
Right, exactly. Great. Okay, well, growing up, we're the slights wipes clean when we're born and we incarnate, but some of us have really strong memories and whatever you call it, bleed through the other lifetimes and stuff. I was a very multidimensional kid. I mean, I was like doing things that are like, whoa, is this really possible? That I look at now like, gosh, what was that all about? The walls would disappear. I was having communication with spirit guides and beings, and I was really being prepared for my path, and I was getting a lot of information about what my path would be about. And so when I was kind of paying attention to the fact that, I'm related to this historical figure, which was odd because you go to family gatherings and you basically just show up and then, wow, okay, a lot of people know this man. Who is this? What is this all about? And then when I, looked at the speech about the military-industrial complex, I'm like, okay. But I had this deep intuitive sense that there was a lot more than what they were saying, and it wasn't just about what's in the history books as far as the wars, because I know that there's more than this dimension, and we're dealing with, a multidimensional cosmos that's teeming with life. I mean, I've always known that. And so when I looked at that speech and I was feeling the energies, starting from when I was a kid and sort of on the path of putting the pieces together, I was standing in line at the grocery store and I saw on the Weekly World News stand that Eisenhower had met with ETs, but it was the biggest joke newspaper ever. Everybody knows Weekly World News, I'm sure. It's like a total joke, bat people are going to invade New York City. And then at this point right now, that it's not that shocking. Maybe they would and could. But when you're a kid and you're looking at that news, you don't even think that it's based on any kind of reality because that's not what the paper's about. And then later on I realized, wow, actually the Weekly World News was a little accurate because I'm hearing all these rumors and whistleblowers talking about, government and ET relations. Okay, so that's when everything sort of fell into place for me because, oh my gosh, I dealt with a recruitment in 2006, so that was the big chunk of really, really validating the truth of all
with Mars.
But
right?
the ET government relations have been in place a lot longer than Eisenhower. Basically, they originated with Hitler, Crowley, and Churchill. To get more information about that, I would check out energeticsynthesis.com. And basically, these were the three that started to deal with the gray alien technologies and started to put in place certain agendas that are all about the artificial timelines. So by the time it came to Ike, it was already heavily, in the wartime scenarios and ended up through Project Paperclip coming over into the American government. And so by the time he became president, these treaties were already pretty much anchored, and he was kind of used as a scapegoat to sign over something and also played and manipulated into thinking that he was helping to rescue a race that was dying out. And they ended up breaking those treaties. So to make a long story short, how this connects to the archons and what the archons are, I mean, when we think about our energy bodies and when we think about when we're in disunion, we create all sorts of weird energetics. We create weird dynamics with our friends, with our relationships, and we can feel a lot of constriction and pain. We can feel a lot of negative energy, and those negative energies get very exacerbated by what's called archons. Archons are basically the same kind of energy, but they were formed thousands and thousands of years ago to the point of having enough form to be like entities. And these entities are basically looking for a similar type of vibration to feed on. And that's why this matrix is all about lowering us into being vulnerable to addiction and to lower forms of relating, because that's what they thrive on, because that's what they are made of. When we're dealing with the primordial sea of chaos and we're dealing with a free will universe, the splitting of the masculine and feminine ended up creating an archonic system, because when the masculine and feminine is split, that's when the negative ego comes alive. And when the negative ego comes alive, it produces a lot of negative energy, and those negative energies create beings. And so that's what happened then on a macro level. And so those beings you could call, negative ETs or whatever, but they can be reintegrated into us when we create unity, and they can be transmuted. Not all archons are bad, and basically what archons means is rulers. And so reptilians can be considered archons, archetypal energies can be considered archons, and same with pantheons, like Greek pantheons, Egyptian pantheons. It's basically when you leave the pleroma and you leave the post of being a generator and you start to move into the physical universe, then you become an archon, whether it's good or bad. We're dealing with a free will universe, and so we have duality. So we have both negative and positive. The negative, of course, represent the negative alien agendas. The positive, of course, are the benevolent ones that can assist us. But we have to understand that we're made of these energies. They're extensions of us. We're extensions of them. And the energy and vibration we carry is what draws these beings in. And of course, we go through certain initiations and tests, whereas where on our spiritual path, we might find we're psychically attacked. And so not to feel like a victim, we have to understand that it's all about raising our frequency above these forces, and that's where the alchemy comes in.
Cool. Okay, it was interesting. Me and my friend were talking about something pretty similar last week, and I'll just talk about it real quickly just to give people a bit of a visual. And Laura, you can tell me if this makes sense, if this fits in with what you're saying in regards to the archon. So the body itself has multiple layers to its etheric field, you could say. So, I mean, there's our physical body, but then our body itself is actually something that encompasses, like...
Hello? Uh-oh.
Okay, so we can talk about something else until he gets back.
Okay, sounds good to me. I just had a question about your global alchemy and that your role as a global alchemist. And you said earlier that it was the concept of turning lead into gold and the lead of your experience into gold. So what is your role as a global alchemist exactly?
Well, I went on a deep, deep, deep journey. Started probably at the age of 12 and ended when I was, maybe 2009. I mean, I can't even really think of time when it comes to this, but basically it involved going deep into the underworld, into many different layers of our multidimensional reality, but ones that are very much in the womb of the mother. And the womb of the mother has been very, very infiltrated by dark forces, and so it involves using those energies and shifting it within the self to take it to a higher level and to call that power back. But I'll get into that later. So anyway, you were saying about the etheric bodies and all this. You got cut off.
Yes. That tends to happen. The Illuminati, they're on stuff. Every now and then they just like to say hello, and that's one of the ways how they do it. So shout out to NSA and the Illuminati for tuning into our show today. Anyway, what I was gonna say in terms of like this etheric energy and our body being. Visually thinking about our body having layers to it. So there's our physical shell, and then outside of that you can just imagine like an outline, sort of like a force field of some sort of energy, and then like outside of that there's like another force field, and then outside of that there's another force field, in the same way that we have onions, and onions have layers. So there's different aspects to our etheric field, and that can get into a really complicated process of explaining it. But what I'm talking about in terms of the archons, and again, Laura, you can tell me if this makes sense and fits in with what you're saying, but my buddy was talking about, like, imagine visually that there's these entities all the time that are trying to like reach their way through our fields, through our force fields, to like get at us, to like grab us, like literally imagine like something reaching in with their hand, but it's reaching and it's moving like really slowly towards us. So it's like if anybody's seen the movie Constantine, there's a part where he's like escaping from hell and the time slows down.
That in my mind all day.
And the creatures, like, you know, the demons in that case, they're like reaching for him, and it's like really slow, right? So it's like it's a process like that where all the time there's a possibility, and this you know, don't get scared about this idea that there's like other dimensional entities and energies that are sort of reaching in through our field very slowly, and oftentimes people like don't even realize that this is happening until like they're being like grabbed at the heart, or like, you know, as a metaphor, so to speak, and these things are starting to like merge themselves into like our space. So Laura, you tell me, like, did I explain something that made sense there with what you're understanding?
Yeah, and it reminds me of, you know, the fact that we have mental bodies, emotional bodies, spiritual bodies. And so this happens on a physical level when we're dealing with parasites, bacteria, and viruses. On a mental level, that has to do with information and the things that can make us kind of go bipolar when we get lost in the duality and we can't find our neutrality, or we, you know, get polarized so much by our experiences that we kind of lose it. So our spiritual bodies, you know, are dealing with the same kind of thing when it comes to entities. So if we're able to catch bacteria and viruses, my God, we can, you know, also catch entities and beings and their influence, and it can, you know, hook into us. And it's actually, it kind of creates a tentacle, and it works with our circuitry, similar to the way the grids are affected on our planet. And it burrows, and it feeds on our negative consciousness, and it grows based on the thoughts and the energies that we're carrying. And so it exacerbates it if we allow ourselves to continue, and it's like a mutual feeding. And then it ends up kind of like locking a person in for a while, and then possession can even happen. So what I say to people is understand that you have a spiritual immune system, and it's okay to be exposed to these things because it'll help you to understand where you need to get stronger. Just like disease can help us to understand what the root of our issues are and the traumas that we're still holding on to and the things we might not have let go to, because all these systems, of course, are connected. And physical parasites also connect to spiritual entity parasites as well. It's kind of like if it happens energetically first, then the physical body's the final frontier where things are going to show up, because energy always happens before the physical. So, you know, when we increase our immune system on a spiritual level, it's a lot more difficult for these entities to attach to us. And so we're being asked on a collective level to unify, because that's the collective immune system of the planet, which will help to rid, you know, all these parasitic forces from having control over us. And the governments and religion and the money system are where they run their energies through, and through our technologies like our cell phones and our computers and all this. So we don't have to be afraid of it and put ourselves in a bubble. All we need to do is strengthen our field, just like an immune system. You can still be around sick people, and you can still travel the world and not catch everything under the sun if you're strengthened. And part of strengthening yourself is being exposed to it and walking that path, and then having it be a trigger to rise into something stronger rather than weaken oneself because you're taking it personally, because you're becoming a victim, because you are buying into defeatism, when really we're superior beings to all these lower energies. And I use it as a catalyst to help us grow, whether it's physical, whether it's a spiritual attack, or any kind of attack. We have to let it serve us, or else we're going to stay in this duality, us against them.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I'll pass it off to Brianna here, but one thing that I'd like to keep in mind, a lot of people could find it easy to complain about a lot of stuff in this reality, but I mean, for me personally, like, my observation, we're playing on hard mode, boys and girls, and to be honest, I wouldn't want to play it any other way. Anybody who's gone through a video game, you know, you go through normal mode and you're just like, that was fun, but, you know, it wasn't. Yeah, exactly, right? Like, where's the additional challenge? So we're playing on hard mode, and within that process, there's a lot of opportunity to learn. So, I mean, even just to bring down, you know, sort of look at what Laura was just saying right there, I mean, whether you're thinking about, like, spiritual energies attacking you or not, just even look at the processes that you're experiencing within your life, and just, like, your relationships and the things that are within your 3D reality. And because those in itself are obviously a reflection of, like, what you are putting out, what the energy is that you're creating for yourself. And we've talked about this plenty of times on Paradigm Shift Radio, the idea of, like, how much we are involved with the creation of our own reality. And we'll get more into that later in the episode as we can find out how to, you know, become spiritually stronger and to step into our role as, like, cosmic sovereign beings, so to speak. What I would like to touch upon before we get to onto some of that stuff is some of the topics relating to this idea of time travel and Mars colonies. and how those interrelate, and just what the audience can find out about those. But like I said, I wanted to give Brianna a chance to just jump in here. So maybe Brianna, do you want to say something and then pass it off to Laura?
Yeah, like the whole concept of you being infected with or possessed by negative energies, and how it can happen without you knowing, or just even in the sense that, like, if you're on the path of becoming spiritually stronger, sometimes a darker energy might take an indirect route to get to you, and might go through, say, a friend, and all of a sudden a friend will start acting strange to you.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how they'll try to get to you. And so you have to make sure that you tell other people, like, hey, I'm about to become spiritually stronger, and that means that I need you to become strong too, and, like, we can just do it together and just be aware of, like, those energies, because that can happen to people in their lives.
Oh my gosh, the amount of energies, I mean, that's a big one, how they channel through people. Any weaknesses that we have, I mean, they're just, like, out on the lookout, and they'll just jump right in, and they'll just, you know, and it gets, that's where I experience it the most is through others. And, of course, we all battle our own stuff, but I experienced a lot of that. And, you know, everything under the sun is subject to, you know, these type of things. And exactly, you know, people have to just be aware and prepared. It's kind of like before you go on a boat, grab the lifeboat, grab the life jacket. I mean, you know, it's just, you got to know what you're in for, and once you do, then you're prepared. But if you're not prepared, it can really throw people off guard. It can throw people into a lot of trauma and grief. It can, you know, split apart friendships and relationships. And we really have to be on guard. We have to plug up where we're opening ourselves up and allowing those forces in. But ultimately, it strengthens us. So we just hold space for each other, have forgiveness and compassion, and then boom, you know, we're initiating ourselves into just the greatness of all that we are.
Exactly.
And that's what we're required to do right now.
And I think it's interesting that you said, like, opening up the space and stuff, but also making, like, one of the ways you can safeguard is, like, you don't have to resist it all the time. Sometimes it's okay to embrace your darkness.
You have to embrace the darkness, because if you don't, then at times it can end up getting the best of you. I mean, the thing is, anything that's suppressed ends up, you know, becoming a pressure cooker that's going to come out eventually. You know, we can't try and hide any of us. I mean, we're made of earth, air, fire, water. We have all these elemental energies running through us that have different qualities and properties. And we do have the shadow self, but the shadow self is where we might be unconscious. But once we become conscious of the shadow self and we embrace it and love it, and we find that darkness is really the richness of our fertile creativity, and it's the soil that we plant seeds in, our higher consciousness seeds that produce new realities and grow new worlds, then we're not so afraid of ourselves and our power, and we can handle the darkness. But in order to handle the darkness, we have to dig into it. We have to look at what's under the, you know, what is in the roots, you know, what's affecting the growth, what's inhibiting it, and start to purify the soil and clean it up. Because the mother womb has been so infiltrated by these dark technologies that we're going to find when we go into our darkness that we're going to experience similar things. And that's what the journey into the underworld and the labyrinth is all about. And that's what the path of the global alchemist is about. So I'm glad you're saying that, because that'll help to make sense of what I was saying before.
Cool.
Full circle, yo.
Is that full circle? I mean, I feel like we're still, like, branching. I mean, yeah, there's circles and weaves and helixes, so yeah, that just crosses through the helix once again. But let's continue to expand the sine wave, the flow, the cycle of this helix pattern, and just to sidestep a little bit, just within, like, this first half of the show at least. I mentioned, I would like to just get into what Laura has to share about the idea of Mars colonies and time travel specifically. I think those are just fascinating topics, and not that we here at Paradigm Shift Radio just try to turn this into, you know, like, just superficial speculation and just just Hollywoodize, like, because a lot of people will think about this stuff and they'll hear people talking about it, and it's easy for them to label people and to call people crazy. But I'd like to think that anything that we can talk about here on the show can be talked about and brought down to earth in such a way that we can try and comprehend it, try to suppose it. So, Laura, I'll pass it off to you. Tell us however you'd like to. What can you tell us about these topics of Mars colonies and time travel and other hidden agendas?
Is it real?
Is it? Yes.
Oh, absolutely real. I mean, people have to understand that, you know, the sci-fi writers out there aren't just pulling this out of their hat or imagination. I mean, it's based on a lot of stuff that's going on. I mean, I think that movies reveal more truth than our governments do. The government's theater, but it's posed as reality, where many, the things that we see in the movies are based on, a lot of truth. Of course, sometimes the messages are manipulated for a reason. But yeah, I mean, I'm used to being called crazy, and it doesn't matter because I have proof of these experiences, and there's so many whistleblowers, and there's galactic historians and researchers out there that can verify this. And it's like, I could easily say, people are crazy for not looking at this stuff and taking it, seriously. But we got to kind of drop that stuff and look at what's happening, because here we are in 2013. I was recruited to go off planet in 2006. I was also prepared as a child for this in a lot of ways, and it had everything to do with the Stargates and the timelines. The Stargates, the natural Stargates, connecting to the Venus transits and what the Venus transits represent. The Mayans understood what the Venus transits were all about, and actually, just to help the audience understand, we understand that Venus is all about love and beauty, and Mars is very much about the I am creator self, the willfulness, the solar plexus, the drive of the will to say, I want this, I need that. It's very much a power energy. Venus is very much a love energy, and we see people talking about those energies like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. So it's kind of funny in this patriarchal existence that we live in that there's a hidden Mars agenda. It actually doesn't surprise me at all. But what's happened to Mars is it's taken on sort of not the I am creator self in an empowered way, in alignment with the higher truth and universal law and source energy and basically where it should be orientated. It's actually in alignment with the negative ego, and that connects to things in our ancient history like Maldek, and that's a little bit too much to get into. And there's always gray areas, so I don't want to, force people to, take this without realizing that, there might be bits and pieces missing, of course. But there's plenty of people that can talk about all those kind of details. What I like to do is break it down into more simplicity. So what the Mars agenda really represents is a power play of energies that are all about control and domination. This is the very unconscious Mars. The higher octave of Mars is much more the warrior. And so what I was being prepared for is to, I'm very Libra, I'm mostly, my chart's very, Venus ruled. And so, a lot of us have that. But for some reason, I was invited to go off planet, and so I was utilizing, those aspects of the Venus energy, knowing that was a part of why I was recruited, and also, being a part of this bloodline. Nobody else in my family was recruited, though, so it was kind of a mixture of those things, the bloodline and also the work I do that I've been doing for many lifetimes, connected to Gaia Sophia and these Venus transits. The Venus transits are basically helping us get, and has helped us get back in alignment with the galactic plane through the underworld journeys and the archetypal path of going into the underworld and rebirthing the self. There's a lot of myths that talk about this. Some of them have been distorted. But basically, when we go deep into ourselves and rebirth ourselves on our own terms, we're able to really experience the totality of who we are. Well, this is happening on a planetary and macro level. So the Mars agenda is trying to steer us into a new world order agenda, all about domination and control. And so these off-planet colonies and underground bases were implemented in the 50s, and that was called Alternative 3. And basically Alternative 3 is all about building a transfer station also on the backside of the moon, and to build an underground base on Mars and remove a certain limited amount of people to these survival colonies and underground bases in the event of a catastrophe. And so that was what the communication was, and so a lot of people were all about it, and they went through a certain level of programming to get them on board this, in thinking and believing that they were doing something good for humanity, and that this was a very good thing to protect the human genome, to put us in underground bases or off-planet colonies. But the real truth is, which is what I understood, and I was getting these transmissions and downloads, I guess you could call them, or intuitive hits when I was being recruited, that all that was false. Plus, I didn't have all that information either, but believe me, the minute that was presented to me of going off planet, I was getting my head in this stuff, like, okay, what does this mean? What is this all about? Is this some sort of NASA thing? Is this something that's public? Is this something that many are going to be able to go to? But it was so hush-hush and quiet. And then I started to realize, there's things like MyLabs, there's things like artificial telepathy, there's things like HARP, and all these manipulations, and this agenda is more the black ops type. This is not something that the public knows, and I was, told I can't talk about it. Well, I'm too rebellious for that, and I have a big mouth, so that doesn't really work. But it was presented to me in a very, very, kind of luring type way, like, we're going to give you a position of power, this is all for your protection, this is a really good thing, we're not going to hurt you type stuff. But I had a premonition and a dream that I was going to be controlled, and the reasons were not positive at all. And I knew that there was no way I was going to go anyway, because I've had a strong mission to stay with Gaia and to serve Gaia since I was a little kid. I mean, for many lifetimes. So there was no way anyway. But this was all extra stuff, trying to say, we're heading into cataclysms, Armageddon, pole shifts, we need to go off planet. And it was like, oh, and, you're going to come with us. And I was like, not going to have it. And I did a lot of research, and I understood that the names that were connected to this project had hidden their information. They had destroyed any evidence of what they were really up to. But I wasn't going to quit. I spent about 2 or 3 weeks searching these names, going on websites, searching names that they knew, friends of friends, colleagues of colleagues, until my intuition was quenched with what I knew what was really going on. And these names I ended up finding were associated with things like HARP, artificial telepathy, MyLabs, psychotronic weaponry, and mind control. So it connects to this hidden Mars agenda, which is all about the New World Order. And it's all about taking a certain number off planet and protecting them, and then just horrors happening on Earth. The things that we're seeing now that actually aren't going to be able to really work, things like blue beam technologies that aren't going to work, things like geoengineering and chemtrails that might work for a certain amount of time, and the radiation might affect people for a certain amount of time, but they haven't gotten a grip on the timeline like they wanted, because I didn't end up going, because of tons of whistleblowers, and because of so many people like you guys and people in the audience and people that we know that have woken up to what their mission is. And because we've all done that, we've been able to rescue that timeline and keep it from being completely and totally hijacked, which it almost was in 2006. So the Mars agenda has everything to do with the control of the feminine, because if we're talking about patriarchy, we're talking about control. And when we look at our own lives, when we look at our ego, we can see that our own egos can suppress our divine feminine. Our own egos can suppress unity from happening with each other and with our partners. So on a macro level, we're dealing with the same thing. And what it seeks to do is to wipe out a huge portion of the population and create sort of a scenario where we're dealing with transhumanism, a chip population that's morphed into artificial intelligence, and then they come and play the rulers and the gods and the controllers. And so I knew all this, and man, did I get pissed off. And so the fire of my rage, divine rage, and the passion to do what I came here to do saved my life. I got away from it, I got out of it, and then I became a whistleblower and started talking about it. But my job, what I feel, is to not brand these people as our enemies, but to utilize the Venus energy and connect the Venus energy with the Mars energy to enlighten it out of the negative octaves or the negative polarity of what Mars is doing, and to enlighten it to become the spirit warrior, so that that energy of Mars isn't functioning in domination and control anymore, but the Mars energy is saying, hey, wait a second, there's a higher self I can serve. And so that Mars energy within us and on a macro level can begin to understand the heart, and that masculine and feminine can come into harmony together, and the Mars energy can then be a warrior for spirit and utilize that willpower to make a change happen on a multidimensional level, and that's what my work is really about. And I know that if I can express this on a sort of personal level, it'll start to affect it on a galactic, global level. And so that's why I don't consider them, and I probably drive them nuts because I forgive them and I love them, and I'm just like, it's okay, like, you know, I mean, I'm not, there's some things that are, you know, kind of hard to forgive, but there's a lot of really well-intentioned people, and so, you know, there's no reason to keep this duality going. It's all about integrating these energies, because we need to do this on a personal level. Everything we're seeing on a personal level is playing out on a larger level. We affect it, it affects us. You know, the people say as above, so below, but I say as below, so above, because what we choose to do can affect everything that's above, just as much as what's above is affecting what's below.
Yeah.
So you said that you were recruited and you were contacted, and I just wanted to know, like, how did you get out? Like, are they still trying to contact you, or are they just trying to sabotage you at this point?
Yeah, like who contacted you? What did they contact you for?
Right. Well, this is funny because people don't believe my story because I'm still alive. They're like, no. How can you still be talking about this? Well, basically, who contacted me? I went to a festival in 2006. And I met a person, and basically it was set up that, you know, we were just friends and we formed a relationship. And as we got closer, this Mars stuff kept coming up. And I was living in D.C. at the time, and he was going to all these secret meetings and telling me, you know, we had to go to Mars, and there was emails being sent, and there was hush, 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 and quiet. And he was going to these secret meetings with individuals. I might as well just say it because I've already put it out there, called the Aviary and the Aquarium. You can Google the Aviary and find out a little bit more about it. The websites that are out now weren't around when I was breaking free of this recruitment, but now they really represent what I did discover. And when I saw the websites, I was like, oh my gosh, wow, this really validates, you know, what I was able to, you know, find after weeks and weeks of research trying to, you know, find it. So anyway, this person was set up specifically. And what was utilized was looking glass technologies. Looking glass technologies are quantum access technologies, and they're time travel technologies. They can go into past lives. They have access to, you know, who we were in past lives, and they can target individuals. So what they did is they targeted him. because they knew that we had been in a relationship in a past life. And once they had him, they used him as bait to lure me in. Because they knew they couldn't mind control me, they figured they could heart control me. Have me fall in love with somebody, and yes, I'll go anywhere with you. Yeah, even Mars. Nope, sorry. But that's what they were hoping for, was that I would, fall prey to this and figure, the world was going to blow up in cataclysms, and I would go off on a ship with, my mate. But luckily, being, rather psychic and spending a lot of years in the wilderness and going to Clairvoyant Institute, I was a very clear-seeing individual at that time. So I knew that none of this was flying. None of it was set up in a genuine way, but it was a facade, just like a false flag. So basically we got engaged, though. This was before I had, the big dreams that really hit me hard. But when I was engaged and I moved, to North Carolina, my goal was to convince him to not go to Mars and to stay on Earth to create sacred union. And so when I was pushing this, the death threats came. We discovered that webcams were all over the neighborhood, black vehicles. He was going out and getting transmissions because basically what he was being communicated through artificial telepathy. He thought he was getting real contact and real information about going to Mars. But when he would come and tell me this, I knew that it wasn't real. I knew that it was artificial because my boys and I would get sick, even the dog would get sick, and it was like this very synthetic, very artificial, really weird energy. And basically they had pulled him in, they had set up a MyLab, and then pulled him in and acted like a group of people that were here to help abductees. But in actual fact, they were using this technology to influence him to create this Mars trip where, it was all just so set up I can't even tell you. It was like scripted. It was unbelievable. And I don't know how I managed to just pick up on the whole thing pretty much from the get-go. But I wanted to, keep him from it. I wanted to help him. Then I realized how mind-controlled he was because he would get calls on the phone and get codes and then disappear for days and not remember where he was. So then I ordered earth magnets, and I did all this stuff in Organite, and I was trying to place it on him to try and deactivate this stuff, and he's just, not having it and not believing that, he's under this control and that he's probably, has alter personalities. At the time, there was no Project Camelot. I had nothing to go on, so it was a really weird thing. And then when, of course, Project Camelot came out and a lot of whistleblowers, I was like, oh, my God. It was kind of validating because I, wasn't feeling, I don't know, when you're projected upon because you don't do well in school, it was like, okay, it made me realize that my mind really does work because this was not easy to get out of at all. It was really, really difficult.
Your
very
intuition
threatening.
was like full throttle.
I went to top. What's that?
I said your intuition was like full throttle.
Yeah, it blows my mind, and I think this is what we all have when it really comes down to it. We have a survival mechanism in place and a will that will allow us to see what we need to see. And when we're devoted to a certain mission or a certain relationship or anything, something within ourselves, we've got all sorts of protection. We've got, it lights up our awareness, and it keeps us really in check. But anyway, so
So actually, Laura, I was going to jump in. Even, in terms of the theme of mind control, a lot of people have difficulty even believing something like that is real. In the first place. I don't want to cut you off if you got more that you want to just share there, but can you tell us a little bit, literally just a little bit, because I know you could go really deep into it. What exactly are some of the mind control processes that you're aware of that were being used by Black Ops and whatever?
Oh well, mind control is about as large as our whole of humanity that's under some level of mind control. But in the most concentrated of versions, we're dealing with black projects, we're dealing with super soldiers, we're dealing with ritual abuse, we're dealing with Monarch program. I've done a presentation before that listed all the different MK Ultra branches, all the different things that have branched off from MK Ultra, which was, mind control that even Clinton apologized for. So, anybody who doubts it, you can do the research. Even the governments have admitted it, but they said that they stopped, but they haven't. There are all sorts of whistleblowers and all sorts of people coming forward that have been dealing with the worst of it. People like Jay Parker, people like Kathy O'Brien. And basically, you're traumatized at a very young age and split into different, personalities, which they call alters. And they program these alters, and they put particular codes or information in those personalities, and they can activate it. And they can use you to do assassinations, to be a sex slave, to do what my partner did at the time, which was, find me at a festival and bring me in. I didn't even realize that I was specifically targeted. I just thought I met somebody that was going to go to Mars, and I just happened to be somebody he met that he wanted to go with. And I thought this would be easy to get out of it. All I have to do is break up with him. But no, I found out 6 months later he was specifically sent, because he told me, and it was admitted, that he was specifically sent with orders from them on a mission to pull me in. But he didn't think that the people that were giving him his orders were negative. He didn't know that he was under mind control. And so he told me about his handler, and I was like, handler, that's a familiar word. I think I've seen that in a movie. And he told me that I could have a handler too. And I was like, I don't want a flippin' handler. So, words like that, those are key words. When you have a handler, normally that means you're under some level of mind control. And what mind control, of course, seeks to do is it removes us from our ability to have free will. And that's what the agendas of domination and control are. We're just dealing with a control freak. I mean, that's like, this is the scenario of control to such an extreme that it's infecting us on a very covert level. But we have to understand it. It's so obvious at this point that people can't really doubt this. I mean, look at people in the news, in the media, and ask yourself, does that really look organic? Does that really benefit the children? Does that really steer us down the right course? Does that really benefit relationships? Does that really honor the things that are sacred? And if you can actually say no, then that's mind control, because it's not organic. It's not the truth of who we are. Anything that's like a subpersonality and a diversion from that, some of it's creative and fun, and it's fun to, explore different aspects of ourselves, but some of it is so locked into a particular destination, which is all about enslavement and all about ripping us away from the truth of who we are, that it's extremely dangerous. So on the largest of levels, most of humanity is under mind control. When you see people going to the Queen Jubilee and you see them picking up magazines about the royal baby being born, that's mind control. These are not royal beings at all. These people are sick. When you see people going to church and trusting the Vatican, voting for a president, they are under mind control. And this is no judgment, because deep inside these people have beautiful hearts. Most people do. But the mind has been targeted, and they believe that this is all okay. And it's completely understandable that people are born with trust in their heart. But you got to look at the signs. The Queen has enough worth in her crown to feed the hungry children of the world. That is not right. I mean, people have to look at the morality of this. We are dealing with such extreme injustices, and people flock to the celebrity world. They're more concerned about the Kardashians than they are about chemtrails. It's just mind blowing. That's mind control, people.
I think
the most concentrated versions, those are the black ops projects. Those are the hidden things that we don't hear about, that whistleblowers are now talking about.
Yeah. So what happened to this guy? Like, how did you get away?
Oh gosh. Well, basically, I made myself very, very difficult for them to deal with, and I have to admit, I drank a little bit at the time, and I was very rebellious. I was very mouthy, and I was very blunt, and I basically called it all out. I talked on the phone to a friend about it, and basically could hear, the little clicks on the phone, and I basically made it clear that I knew what was going on and that they didn't stand a chance, and I didn't care if they killed me, because I would reincarnate even angrier and more determined to stop them. And basically the game ends here. Yeah, and they know, because even we went out with Andrew Bartes, the galactic historian, and basically, they attempted to pull me off planet to hijack the Ascension timeline, and they're doing all sorts of things besides that to hijack it, and a lot of people have recovered, and we got it back. But once you're able to get over the hump of that one sort of intended attack, then they can't really touch you from that point on. I mean, it was all concentrated on trying to do this. And for some reason, they didn't want to do anything else. And even those that had defected from the program said, they can't harm you. And then it was validated a couple nights ago that, yes, they can't harm me. And you know what? They can't harm any of you either. You know why? Because when you're devoted to the Ascension timeline, when you're devoted to the divinity within yourself, and you're devoted to unity, and you're devoted to the Christ consciousness, or whatever you want to call it, to the goddess energy, there's a natural force field of protection that they can't touch, because that frequency is too high for them. They can only try and manipulate, which is what they try to do. Even those, there's people that are in certain bloodlines, like Illuminati bloodlines, and they are attacked. And they took a very, very brave role to allow themselves to go through that, especially if they were able to recover. But my situation was a little bit different. I didn't quite go through those programs as a kid. I didn't go through the trauma-based mind control stuff. But I was targeted to be steered into going to Mars to be a permanent colonist, to help to reseed civilization there, and to help refurbish a lot of what has been left behind. And that has always been clear to me.
Okay. All right. Okay. So I wanted to. I just have a. Can you just answer this yes or no? Is there stuff on Mars right now?
there's so much going on Mars. It's unbelievable. Anything from oh my gosh. Well, I haven't personally been there, but there's military bases, there's captives, there's abductees, there's aliens, there's humans that have been brought there to do a particular time of service there that think that they're doing something patriotic.
So there are people on Mars right now. Like I'm just reiterating for the sake of our audience. You need to hear it like a few times.
Yeah, there's stuff going on in all sorts of planetary bodies, and most planets are hollow.
Yeah.
There's bases on the Moon, there's bases
Hollow
on Mars,
Earth,
there's bases on Saturn, there's stuff that, we're on a hollow Earth. We're dealing with underground cities. People got to get out of the TV realm, because that is the most limiting world, because that's only going to show you what they don't want you to see. So if you think that's reality, that actually is the false archonic matrix. If you want to shut the television off and open your mind to this other stuff, put on the real news and listen to the real people that are talking, because, everything else out there that's on center stage and mainstream, they're cover-ups, they're false flags, and they basically are pretty much bringing the mind control agendas in a very colorful way to the masses. And it's disguised, like I said, with pop stars, with royal families, with Obama trying to look like this great guy. And, I'm not here to bust on him either. I just don't vote, and I don't have anything to do with governments. So that's just as far as I'll go with that thought.
Yeah. No, that's
what
perfect.
I was going to say is the reseeding of the civilization on Mars has a lot to do with, bringing certain individuals there. And I guess, for some reason, and I know the reasons, but we don't have to get into it, I was one of those individuals.
Right. Okay. So I guess my next question would be, and again, like asking this from the person listening to this and is just trying to piece this together in their head, is how exactly are people getting to these other planets? Like, how are people from Earth, be it like an engineer, like a guy who's like supposed to build something, like how are they getting people to these places?
Well, there's teleportation, there's UFOs,
Government UFOs?
Yeah, there's probably, shadow government UFOs, I guess you could say. They've been reverse engineered. Most of the UFOs we see, I guess the percentages was something like 70% are piloted by humans, 30% by actual extraterrestrials.
I knew it.
We're dealing with a major military, industrial, extraterrestrial complex. So the government and the military are involved in the breeding programs of the gray aliens. And certain factions of these negative aliens, are working with the governments. But those numbers are so much smaller compared to the benevolence of the higher races. And we got to look at this. We got to break it down and bring it back to the individual. What does that really look like for us? Because this is also a reflection of us. When we're dealing with disease and bacteria and germs, it's very small compared to the power of our immune system. So when we're dealing with negative alien agendas and attacks or working with the government, sometimes our ego works with disease, and it can perpetuate it and make it a lot worse. Well, our governments are the negative ego that is aligned with these beings, and they're making things a lot worse. But the immune system, the spiritual energy, is far vaster, far more powerful, and far greater. And that's where our attention needs to be, because that's the solution. So yeah, great, we're under attack. Our physical bodies are every day. But what counteracts it is what we need to pay attention to, because we're dealing with a macro version of ourselves here. And basically it's trying to steer us into a very low-functioning expression of who we are that we're going to be walking down that road of if we keep our vibration in that sort of reaction, duality, fear, misuse of sexual energy, not taking care of our relationships and taking care of ourselves in a good way, because that's exactly what it seeks to do. So you have to buy into the program. You have to buy into the media distortions of the masculine and feminine and all the false flags for all these other agendas to really work. And so they're counting on us to fall into the trap, for the trap to slam on our heads. And what's slamming on our heads are these hidden agendas on a much larger level called New World Order. But for it to work, we have to buy into the programming. We have to be the mouse that looks at the cheese and says, hey, I want that. But if we don't, we can pay attention to, which is what we have to do in our physical bodies, of our healing energy when we're sick. We don't want to make the disease worse. None of us do. And we don't want to go take a drug and have it just easily, take care of the symptoms. We want to heal it on a root level. So that's what my work is about, and so many others, is looking at all this on the deepest of levels. That's why we go all the way back to the beginning of, where everything began, when creation first became, when the planet, was born, and the galaxies and all the different, celestial bodies. and the scenarios and the different races and the dynamics between the archetypes and the different beings and the different races. And then to understand that we're made of all those energies. We hold that information in us. We hold those codes. And so when we sort it out within ourselves, then we emit a vibration that solves it and changes the vibration that's being thrown at us. So what we have to do is throw something back much stronger than what we're getting.
Right, yeah, and I think with that said, I mean, I do want to hear more about the time travel, but I do just sort of want to set the ground for where I would like to take this conversation, and that is towards the title of this episode. I mean, as you know, it's Hidden Agendas and Hacking the Matrix, and that was a term that I specifically pulled and used, and for me, like, hacking the Matrix is synonymous to self-empowerment, to figuring out ways how we can deprogram ourselves from a lot of what Laura is talking about, you know, these control mechanisms that are being placed within us, and just to be able to have a better understanding of our potential within this reality. So I do want to get there. Maybe we'll save, Laura, can you tell us something quick about time travel? Well, actually, I'll set this up. In terms of time travel, and this is just sort of my response, and Laura can add on into it, and this will segue into us talking about this idea of hacking the Matrix and opening up to an understanding of the fact that, like, each one of us is like Neo within the Matrix and can actually have far more potential to create within it than we're commonly led to believe. But with the idea of time travel, and your friend, sorry, what's his? I forget his last name. He was on you guys had him on the radio show, like Vossa, his last name, Fernando. You know who I'm talking about, right, Laura?
Fernando?
Yes, Fernando. I just forget his last name because I want to just mention him. Because he was talking about it not too long ago, and I've seen some of his stuff, and I'll pull his name. His name is Fernando Vossa. And I can link some stuff to him in the show notes as well. But what I was going to say is some of the things that he was talking about is this idea that time travel is actually a natural capability within every single human being. And he was even talking about the idea how, like, the ancient Mayans actually, like, time traveling was like part of their culture, so to speak. And it starts to open up this idea of, like, what we are capable of as, like, multidimensional beings, and using the internal Stargate and traveling through space and time within. And obviously, when you think about the topic of, like, dream exploration, which is a popular topic that we talk about here on the radio show, is the idea that, like, within dreams, time, the way we perceive it is quite different, and we actually do have the potential to explore past and future worlds within our dream space and within our dream time. So I'll just pass it off to Laura. Laura, what can you tell us about the nature of time travel and how that ties in with our nature as human beings within this matrix?
Well, I mean, we can easily, go on inner journeys and access things from the past, go into the future, and recognize the no-time field. Time is an invention in a lot of ways. When we go beyond time and we raise our consciousness beyond time, we realize that we're in our wholeness, we're in that zero-point energy, and we are basically like a whole functioning multidimensional being. And going, back into time is like going back into the memory banks. And when we go into time travel, into our memory banks, we can alter things by bringing light and love to the situations that we used to be in, by altering our perceptions and our reactions and the energy that we threw at others in scenarios in the past. I mean, we can do that in our own physical lives. We can do that, in our past lives. But basically, time travel technology, in the wrong people's hands, infiltrates timelines and starts to alter timelines and the history and the information that's being presented. So basically, a lot of my Mars recruitment had to do with timeline and time travel manipulation via quantum access technologies like looking glass technology to alter things in order to allow them to achieve a certain end. So when history and documents and mythology is altered, then the culture that's born into that read it and see it and take it as truth, and then they pass that information to generations. And so when we understand that we have the ability to time travel and we can separate ourselves from the so-called history and the so-called dogmas and the so-called control systems, then we can start to retrieve that information in the truest sense of the word of what actually really did happen. And it doesn't have to be like, okay, well, this is what really happened in the life of Christ. We can just start to understand that we are these archetypal energies. We played these stories out, and we each have a different way of understanding those things. And so if we limit ourselves to one type of story and this is what it was and this is how it is, then we've lost our connection to the multidimensional reality and all the different timelines and all the different lifetimes that we've had. Supposedly there's 72 first species. This is what Andrew Barton has been talking about. He's a galactic historian. I would look him up. And basically the Earth has been captured so many times that new races had to be seeded, and these timeline wars seeded new races so that they could be the dominating lines that would, be, representing a particular, timeline. The timeline that we want are the divine ones, the ones that represent the organic ascension, that represent our true nature. And so what I'm getting from what he's saying, and I could be wrong because there's much more to understand about this, is with 72 seedings, probably not all of them were the ones that were organic, and that's where the artificial timelines come in. But all that aside, because this is kind of a new bit of information, artificial timelines have been set in place 26,000 years ago with the Nephilim reversal grid, and that technology was put in place to split the spiritual marriage. So from there on, time travel was used as a way to keep a life cycle alive for certain beings that cannot ascend. They've chosen not to ascend, which means that they cannot continue down a certain road for very long without their species dying out. For example, certain species of gray aliens can't go beyond 52,000 years. So that what they do is they time travel back, and they make agreements with our governments, and then they abduct humans, and they use their genetic information, and they use, fluids and all sorts of things, and they create breeding programs in order to allow their race and their species to stay alive, instead of being on the ascension timeline, which would allow them to not have to use us, but allow them to redeem themselves so that they could be a spiritually orientated being. That's why these agendas are a little bit tricky, because it's understandable that a species wouldn't want to die out, but it is not very ethical to use us in order to keep themselves alive, when the ultimate way to keep oneself alive is to begin to commit oneself to the ascension timeline, which has to do with something that's organic, which has to do with making some kind of agreement to incarnate into the angelic human lines, which are the ones that have the 12-strand DNA potential. And so those have been seeded on Earth, but a lot of negative timelines has as well. And so those timelines get crushed, and they dismantle, and they fall apart when we do not buy into the propaganda and the information that those timelines represent. But it's through time travel that they've been able to do this and keep their life cycle alive and keep their species alive through abduction. But they hit a wall, and that's what the descending planet is about, and that's what this bifurcation period is about. So when we understand that we're made of all these energies, and our spiritual abilities have this, our spiritual abilities are beyond these technologies, we can start to restore ourselves and be in a sense of rehabilitation and unification, where whatever wars and false flags have taken place throughout history, and the historical resentments that have come from those wars, we can start to take the charge off. Take the charge that we're holding, where we blame, the Jews or the Nazis, or the Germans, and start to recognize, the game that's being played, so that we can look at the individuals and start to call attention back to our global family, to unification. Because those things and those scenarios have been put in place to keep, division. And the history has been altered in order to keep the real people that are doing the real work from getting the credibility that would allow them to influence certain people to also step into their own leadership role. Because only the good leaders encourage other people to become leaders. Leaders that aren't good are the ones that want to be worshipped and want to be counted upon, because that's a control scenario. So many timelines are all about that. But the timelines that are being manipulated are the ones that start to demonize the ones that are good, and demonize the feminine, which have altered the mythologies that make the divine feminine look like she's to blame. And that's what the Nakamati is. It's actually been altered. People don't really believe that. I never was resonating with those people that were talking about those mythologies, because I could tell that they were off. And so a lot of ancient texts have been planted purposely via time travel so that they could be discovered, and then people would read them and think that they represent a lot about our ancient history, when in actual fact they don't. So people have to be very careful, and the best way to be careful is to go inward, to go deep inside, and to start journeying into your soul. That's what I did for 20 years. That's what the Global Alchemist title is all about. Because in doing that, I was able to time travel. I was able to locate my past lives and not tell the stories of what those lifetimes were, but to call my power back from where they've been manipulated, from where they've been pulled apart, from where they've been demonized and projected upon, to call my self-worth back, to call my power back, to stand, in my vibration, to be able to move forward, and to also project myself into the future in a sort of remote viewing way, to know where these negative agendas are going, to know the difference between what's real and what isn't. That's what helped me get out of the Mars agenda. So whether it's technology time traveling or us time traveling, we want to learn these abilities and recognize that technology is dumbing us down. We need to advance ourselves on a conscious level and then utilize technologies that will help us do that rather than rely on gray alien technology to time travel. A lot of people want to have fun with that. They think it's exciting. But we got to be really careful. A lot of it's Tesla-based, and a lot of it's, okay. And I know that Fernando Vossa and Andrew Bishago and Alfred Webre and others talk about the proper use of these technologies, and that's, where to look for the real use of them. And they're also aware of consciousness. Fernando Vossa, we just had on the show, and it was mind-blowing. He gets it. He gets the connection between the positive use of technology and the advancement of our spiritual abilities, which would bypass the disasters and reliving the catastrophes that happened in Atlantis. Because in Atlantis, that's exactly what happened. Of course, the technology ended up, sabotaging the spiritual development. Lemuria represented the mother energy, Atlantis the father energy. The patriarchy of Atlantis got to be extreme, and technology ended up dominating, and it lost the connection with the feminine. So we're dealing with this scenario again. And if we don't play it right, the technologies are going to take us right into that transhumanism and right into that sort of ethereal imprisonment. But it's the negative ego that imprisons us. Only we can imprison ourselves. But we have to know the difference. We have to understand the game that's being played. And then when we understand it and we get into our spiritual development, then, of course, we can bilocate, we can time travel, we can teleport, we can do all of it. Before all these scenarios happened, before we were in this life-death cycle of reincarnation, we were able to come and go from the physical as we pleased. And so that's what we're returning to on this ascension timeline. And basically, it's the only real timeline. Everything else is falsified just for the purpose of siphoning your soul energy to use it as fuel to control all of us. They're using our free energy as a weapon against us. They're using the earth energy as a weapon against us. That's what HARP feeds on, the prana of the earth. Chemtrails work with the chi of the atmosphere, and basically what it's doing is weather modification. And our intention, our collective intention, is what's steering it into our own demise. Once we call our energy and power back, these technologies don't work anymore. They understand free energy. That's why they manipulate us, because they can grab our energies and use it to fuel these things that are working against us. So we need to call our power back if we want to see these dark technologies collapse. But on some level, they're going to still exist for those that still haven't gotten it. But it's going to be a major splitting where we're not going to be able to share the same dimensional space together anymore.
Right, yeah. Cool. All right, so I know a lot of people in the live chat are getting pretty excited about all the information that is coming out of this show, and like I said, I encourage you to go back and listen to some more stuff, and I'm just going to bring Brianna back on in a second. One response that I did have, hold on, I'm just trying to think. There's a few things that I was thinking about all at once there, just like in regards to the time travel and everything. Okay, yeah, now I know what I was going to say. One thing that I was going to say, like an observation that I've made is me and my friend, we use the term Louch harvesting, and the term Louch is actually a term I believe coined by Robert Monroe, who did a lot of studies of like out of body experiences, and a lot of people are familiar with his work. But he used the term Louch as the energy that the body it gives off all the time. It is the prana of the human body, like that etheric energy that we don't necessarily see, but at the same time, yes, it is an extension of just like the heat and everything else. And that's an energy that we're always giving off through our emotions and through our actions. And one thing that I was always particularly interested in, because for me, this helped me fit it into like this global agenda, bigger picture kind of thing, was the process of like how our society was actually like harvesting this energy, or the idea that this energy was actually being harvested on like higher dimensional levels, and the fact that there are people in this dimension who are aware of that process and who are creating scenarios to assist in this process happening. And one example that I can think of is a example would be of like a sporting event, and especially if you look at like a football event, it's all these people and they're just like riled and everything, and even like the shape of like the football stadium, it's in like the shape of like a vortex. So you can imagine like how these events, these distractions, these fascinations that are created for the majority of the population to just get caught up in behind are actually like massive like energy generators that are in some way being siphoned, being used, being harvested by other etheric entities and stuff like that. So Laura, does that sort of fit in with your understanding?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a lot of kind of what this is all about, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I'm gonna bring Brianna back on since we got a moment here. Brianna, welcome back. Awesome. So, Brianna, I'll let you step in, just listening to what Laura had to say, any reactions or questions, and just a reminder for people in the live. Actually, okay, hold on one second. Reminder for people in the live chat, because this is moving along so fast, this show, and there's only 23 minutes left. If anybody would like to call in, please do that. You can call in off a regular phone if you want to do that. It's a West Coast number. Call in at 347-539-5493. That's 347-539-5493, or call in using your Skype through Blog Talk and get a chance to ask Laura some questions live on air. Just talk to her, whatever you feel called to do. So with that said, though, Brianna, please, the microphone is yours.
Well, she covered so much. Like, this is just information, like, overload, and the fact that I'm, like, feeding off her energy, it's so raw and so awesome, and I love it, and I'm getting so many downloads from all of this, and it just makes a lot of sense, and especially with, like, the emphasis on the collective unconscious. Like, I'm a big fan of psychology. I got my bachelor's of science in psychology. I'm working on my master's. So it's really important when you have to pay attention to where you put your energy, like, and what the public is doing and where they're putting their energy. And just like that football stadium example, like, where is that energy going, and why are they all so riled up over a football game, and, like, why aren't we that riled up about world hunger? Like, why can't we feel like that energy vortex for that? And so it's, like, really talking about, like, the collective unconscious and all that stuff.
Right, totally.
Cool. Okay.
And I do
you have a question?
I have yes.
Or a segue.
I wrote it down.
The people in the chat want to talk about space dolphins. I will say that dolphins.
Are those real?
Space dolphins? Oh, let's ask Laura. Laura, are space dolphins real? People.
I wouldn't say I have a lot to share on that. So, I mean, let's maybe not go there right now. I'm not quite sure what context or, but yeah, I mean, you know. There's teleportation happening with dolphin and whale energy, but that's.
Oh my goodness!
I would look up Joan Ocean for that one.
Okay. All right. So how about exploring your underworld and the journey that you had going through the underworld?
Oh my gosh! Oh man, that was just really intense. Basically, what you end up going into is the void, and it's the I am presence. It's the no ego. It's the it can be very difficult. Not so much because of letting go of all the attachments of ego, but basically, it's not something one has a lot of control over. It's almost something you agree to in before you incarnate into a body, that you're going to go on a path like this. Because it's not like you say to yourself, okay, I'm ready to go in the underworld, let's go. I mean, it was like, it just happens. It's just like you're thrown into it, and it's intense. And some can call it the dark night of the soul. But the journey that I went on seemed to be more like the dark night of Gaia's soul, because it took about 20 years, and it was so unbelievable. I wrote a book about it called The Grail of Venus, and it was actually titled Chronicles from Hell and the Quest to Unite Heaven and Earth. But that was a little bit long. But basically it is kind of like going into hell. And the underworld, really, though, we have to understand, is the mother womb. The only reason it's hell is because we're dealing with so much infiltration there. We're dealing with gatekeepers. We're dealing with dark technologies. We're dealing with demonization of feminine energy. We're dealing with exile of sacred feminine energy as well. So when you go into that zone, you have to face everything that's behind doing this to us on a collective level. You have to face everything that has been trying to make this a reality for thousands and thousands of years. Everything under the sun ends up coming up within the self, in the larger picture. So it was the inner stuff that I was facing, but also the outer stuff. Things were showing up, in the outer that represented a lot of that inner journey. What made it so difficult?
Sorry, Laura, I just want to jump in. Can with the context of what you're talking about, is this like, are these experiences that arise like through meditation or through like sleep? I'm just not entirely clear.
Right. Okay. Usually through trauma. Very sensitive beings end up, going. Basically, it's like dying, going through what a person goes through when they actually have a physical death, but not losing the physical body. So you make the rounds as a soul of going through the death journey, and then you are able to complete that cycle and still hold on to the physical body. The challenge is not losing the physical body, because the physical body wants to follow where the soul's going. So all sorts of things end up happening where you come close to death on a daily basis, because your physical body is wanting, to follow, because the two are supposed to stay connected. So it's kind of like this crazy out-of-body experience. It took me about 20 years, and that's why I wrote a book, because, for 20 years, I was in tears, because it was an extremely painful thing, because you have to kind of live a double life. I still had to show up for school, and I couldn't really attend school. I just never really went because it was, too much. I was so focused on this stuff, but I was getting a lot of information about what I was doing, and my inner voice was always telling me, this is just another day at the office, this is work, don't take it too personally. But, you face all sorts of things, and it's basically what I discovered when I went to the Clairvoyant Institute is they said I was clearing inorganic entities from wormholes, and that's kind of what it is, and we do this unconsciously, a lot of us, where we're clearing energy, and we just do it unconsciously because, nature only knows how to heal and regenerate. So it seemed like a natural process, like a necessity, that I was being called from the spirit of Gaia to do this on her behalf to help clear her Stargate energy, her womb energy, so that we would be on the Ascension timeline, which is why the Mars thing ended up showing up. So, the book was supposed to really be about connecting the dots in my own life to the larger picture. But basically, trauma is what does it. Anything that causes you to leave the body. In ancient times, actually, they used to induce snake bites to be able to go into the underworld, so that it would induce a close-to-death experience. People who go through trauma-based mind control leave the body, but you're dealing with handlers and programmers, so you don't end up being able to have a lot of control over what happens. I didn't feel I had a lot of control over it as far as the grandness of going into the void and how vast that is, but I didn't have handlers and controllers. But I faced a lot of gatekeepers and a lot of controlling beings and a lot of people who were channeling really, really dark energies. Basically, when I broke free of the Mars recruitment, somebody who defected said that they had a list of men that were specifically sent to get in my way. And basically, these people would turn into robots. So I had to kind of confront that, too. And basically, it's the labyrinth. What you're doing is you're walking into the labyrinth, and if people study things, like Glastonbury and some of the things about Glastonbury, they're going to really get to know what I'm talking about as far as going into the underworld. Basically, what you're doing is going into the center, and you're removing the patriarchal influence, and you're rebirthing yourself on your own terms and in your own power. This is what the Divine Feminine Energy has had to do in order to not be absolutely suffocated. And so there's certain beings that are just called to do that, and they help to blaze the trail in a sense so that when other people go through their dark night of the soul, they're not, facing the heavy density of the blockages and cloggings of the planetary chakra systems or stargates.
Gotcha. Okay. I was going to, Laura, can I jump in?
Go through that. There's the micro version and the macro, depending on what you're called to do. Right. I took on the macro,
I guess you could say. I got disconnected again. 1 second. You guys won't be able to hear me.
I can hear you.
Can you still hear? Am I still here? Oh, okay. All right. My computer's just switching down. Ooh, that was a close one. Okay. All right. Well, only 16 minutes left in the show, and we do have some people who are in the queue, and I would love to be able to bring them on. And I apologize that we don't have even more time, but maybe we'll run the show a little bit into the bonus time, and people will be able to listen to the bonus content afterwards when the show is up on YouTube. So do not fret when the show ends early on your end. A couple things that I will mention just before I bring on our first caller from area code 704. A couple of things that I did want to mention off the top of the show is in terms of the ideas of hacking the matrix, there's a little technique that I've been working on, and it's related to awesome buttons, and shift buttons is a term that I'm using. And without even having to get into too much detail, I just want to tell everybody here to check out paradigmshiftcentral.com/buttons, and I'll get into more detail, but that was what I was doing last night. I was giving out free hugs, and I was also giving out free buttons, and the buttons connect people to the Paradigm Shift Central website, and it helps shift consciousness and bring more love, and it gives you an awesome way to engage with your community. So basically, long story short, stand there buy some buttons, get some buttons, stand there with a sign that says free hugs, wait for people to come up, give you a free hug, and then you say, congratulations, you've passed the test, your reward is a free button, and then you give them a button, and you kindly ask for a donation, but either way, they're connected, and it makes their day, and it's an awesome way to spread the love and positivity, and to break those social bubbles and to get connected with people in your community. So if that's something you want to do, if you want to shift some paradigms and get yourself some shift buttons at paradigmshiftcentral.com/buttons. The other thing that I got to mention to you guys before I bring on the caller is that I have recently started a new campaign, a new funding campaign, which is just a way to sort of centralize what we got going on, and that is the creation of Paradigm Shift Plus. So if you have been listening to Paradigm Shift for a while, you know that we put out these episodes regularly, weekly, and they're completely free because we want you guys to be able to use this content, to be able to learn from it, to be able to apply it and be empowered and inspired by it. Paradigm Shift Plus is something that you can join up as a member, and when you do, you'll get access to more bonus content. And some of that bonus content is going to be me reading informational materials, such as reading specific books. One of the first books that I'm planning on reading is The Alchemist, so it's going to be kind of Brendon, story time with Brendon, you could say. And in addition to that, there's going to be more unique bonus content. But go to paradigmshiftcentral.com/PSR Plus to find the link to the Indiegogo page. And that's all I'll say for that. That's all I'll say on that for now, because I want to bring some callers on. And I apologize if we don't get to everybody here, but a big shout out to everybody who has been tuned in. And again, a reminder to listen to this episode again once it's up on YouTube and Facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio. So caller from area code 704, we're going to bring you onto the air. So here we go. Hello, caller. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Hello, caller. Welcome to Paradigm Shift Radio. What is your name? Where are you calling from? And what would you like to bring to the show? Is this Matt?
How'd you know?
I just knew. Matt, welcome back. Okay, Matt, this is interesting. I'm glad you tuned in. Matt, what do you have to bring to the show? Go for it.
Well, I was talking about the system and all the the whole entire brainwash and what do you call it? Stagnation of human beings with their energetic state and whatever. That's what I'm calling it. I actually proposed an idea with myself too about this, and I realized another side of how this can all work out. That one of the reasons why we can't work well with this system is that the way we already know that it wasn't designed to work well with how we naturally are, but that's the whole point of it. Being us in the way we work energetically, or the way we work with the way we perceive the world around us, and the way we go about the world is in a way where it's creative, too creative, to the point where we're more so focused on, like, I don't know how you call it, being in tune with everything around us. We're not so focused on this very secular way of life, creating all these individual ideas and ideals and sticking with them. But then I thought that if there was, for me, my idea that in the first few coming years, there's going to be a big thing going on where people are going to start advancing to the point where they get away from this way of thinking, get away from this society in a sense. But I also think that there are going to be some people, some citizens that are going to still get stuck in this, but it's still going to be okay. And this is just an idea I'm proposing, because the reason why is that I'm thinking that there's going to be a specific group of people who are going to get creative with the system. They're going to start doing the same things they're doing, the same ways of making these individualistic, categorized ideas, but they're going to make it in a way where it starts to get creative. It's almost transmuting the dark system into something great, where it was originally supposed to be something messed up and bad, when they're taking all these, specific things they're focusing on and somehow turning these different ideas and turning the different singular aspects into, into a mix of a new way of going about life creatively, and it just changes over time. I don't know, it's an idea I thought of, and I just wanted to see if I can give that out to you people.
Laura, do you have
Thank
a response?
Yeah,
thanks,
I had kind of a hard time following, so how would you kind of pose that as a question?
Oh, it wasn't a question. I just wanted to see what you guys would think of that in a sense, because I was trying to think. What?
No, that was awesome then, what you shared. I don't have too much more to add to it. But it, definitely seemed to resonate. But is there any question kind of coming from that I could, shed light on, or?
Do you think that human beings could work with this system in a way where they can make it to our advantage, so that they can take this way of thinking that they've conditioned us to be, and then they can somehow, work with it where they're still living the same way they are living, but they're finding ways to, like, turn it into something interesting or creative or amazing, like how people would randomly drool over football or sports or whatever and make it seem like it's all about this, how they take the idea about how sports and somehow connect it with other ideas, and then they end up creating a whole entire, big connection with how this could actually be representing to this and this could be relating to this, even though before they were only focusing on the fact that someone's throwing a ball to each other and that's basically what they're drooling over. they're somehow being able to focus on, I don't know, connecting that with the, I don't know what you would call it, like.
No, I get what you're saying. Well, absolutely, because when you think about it, our creativity, our imaginations, can take anything and turn it into something, really positive that creates sort of this connection to something much larger than what we're seeing. Any tool or technology or anything that we're experiencing, it's the person behind it, it's the frequency behind it, it's the players in the game, it's the interactions. That's where the energy and expression, comes from. And there always can be deeper meanings inserted into things that can allow things to expand into, a better way. It's kind of like, when you see a house, or you can kick out what's inside of it and put something else in it, that has a different vibration, but the structure is still basically the same. It's about evicting the dark characters, though. It's like there's the wrong people running the show, and the wrong, the technologies are in the wrong people's hands, and that's the real dilemma. Human beings are very good-hearted people. Most of the collective are very heart-centered beings. They just don't realize they're absolutely being led astray. The mind control is so unbelievable. So imagine if people just grasped that and changed, what they were allowing their minds to attach themselves to and what they choose to empower. If they could just alter that a little bit, that's going to make all the difference in the world, So yeah.
And also, me, when I do a lot, this is one of the things I do a lot when I think about these things. My way of helping transmute these things is thinking about these things comically. I always think about, somehow there's a group of people who are maniacal and messed up and they're going against someone, and then all of a sudden a group of people just walk around and they're doing their own weird thing around them, ignoring every attempt that these people are trying to do, and they're just running around, being completely normal. It's comical in a sense. So one scenario I thought of in my head is that over time the society that the so-called elite have made, where they're trying to brainwash people, the reason why it works on people so much is because that some people can get emotionally affected by it a lot. They can get to a point where they're getting confused on why this is like this or this is like that. Whereas some people would realize that if you somehow lose your home, and you're homeless, instead of going crazy into the depression of it, you understand that it's happened, but you're going to get somewhere else different. And when people have these ideas and realize that it was made to make you afraid of this type of thing happening to you, most people end up trying to improve the system and trying to change it because they know it's made to just scare people. What if everyone understood that? But the only difference is that they didn't try to improve the system. They were standing there and they knew someone was messing with them in a way where they're trying to make them get all emotionally messed up over how something could happen. And something happened, and they just simply go through with the negative process. Like this, you all know spirit science. One of the episodes they put out was cycle and sine waves, talking about how you're just supposed to go through the negative really quickly, just embrace that negative feeling and go through it.
Yeah, the dark and the light are working together. One, it's duality, and this is what the Tree of Knowledge is about, learning about good and evil, and we can't just be in the fluffy good, and we can't just be in the negative evil, but we have to understand how the two play off of each other, and then find that center point of balance and detachment and understanding the adventure and understanding the metaphors behind this dream that we're in and reading the signs, and understanding that we're on this huge adventure, and the more we hold on to things and the less we can let them go, the worse off we are. And so the manipulation is a lot about our reactions. The American dream and the things that cause people to think that they need something for self-worth is where we're targeted. And those are all lies. And that's how the grading system is. That's what having certificates is. That's what having the great houses and the kids and the cars and the, and all the sort of, superficialities that people get so caught up in that if any of that gets ripped away, people are devastated. And it's that's not how it's supposed to be. On an organic level, we don't need these attachments. We're on an adventure, and we can materialize things, and we can, also trust the universe. The universe picks up most of the slack, so we got to trust what comes and goes from our life. The dark side only wants to make it a terrible experience by manipulating the way we feel about it. But what's actually happening is perfect. It's up to us to have the right perceptions.
And basically, that's what I'm trying to.
I was going to say, guys, we only got 5 minutes. We only got 5 minutes left in the show, so we're counting down the seconds here. Matt, maybe if we can just summarize, or
Okay, so basically, in my little idea, I was thinking if everything were to go the way the so-called the elite wanted it, it wouldn't go exactly. And standing there, when everyone's still walking around about the system, me, I'm talking about a group of people who understand how the system works, where they don't get so emotionally affected by it. And somehow they find other ways that they can still feel happy while they do the same thing over again, doing the jobs in school, like that. And then over time, when everything, where everything's like fully next from all the killing and problems get fixed, of course. But I'm talking about like the little brainwashing texts where people are trying to get you stuck into the idea of certificating into the education system and doing all that. If everyone understood how that changed, they thought about the world, and they didn't allow it to change the way they thought, out through the actions, but they didn't let the actions change how they thought, and they kept going to it to the future. You'll find that a bunch of people are like on the upper hand, where if they choose to, they can go and create a new system. But they're still doing these same actions. But I mean, the little brainwashing things like that are being put, like sitting there with the TV on and seeing all the shows on the TV, and sucked into it. But I don't know how to explain it. But
all right, Matt, I'm
people don't
gonna
have to like run and bolt from where they are already in their lives. They just have to have a certain level of detachment and to fill those spaces with the right energy.
I mean, the end is like the Illuminati is sitting there and they're like looking at everyone calmly doing the same thing, just doing their jobs with everyone, and they're smiling at each other, and they're like, "What the fuck just happened?"
All right, Matt, I'm gonna jump in there and just add a couple thoughts. I think some key things just to mention for the people listening, at least from one of my own observations, is the idea that we can use the term positive and negative, but kind of what I was saying earlier is that we're playing on hard mode, and consciousness itself created that opportunity where there's a natural energy in this reality that seems to go against. It seems to represent the rock that the water moves around, that allows us to sort of refine ourselves over time. So I mean, that natural difficulty, that natural darkness, that is the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them. That is part of this consciousness process, this ascension timeline that we are moving through, and just being aware of it in that way, I think, is pretty key. And again, as Laura was saying, is to be able to return return love to any of the people who may be commonly sort of labeled as the bad guys in whatever way, because they are essentially helping us see more of ourselves and wake up. And
exactly.
With that said, I do just have to mention that we're about to wrap up the show, but the show is not officially over. For everybody who is looking to continue the conversation, we will be doing an after-party hangout tonight. We have had a high record amount of people in the live chat. So for anybody in the live chat, first of all, for everybody in the live chat, listen closely. For everybody in the live chat, take this opportunity to post your Facebook profile. And then if you post your Facebook profile, it is an invitation for anybody else in the live chat to send you a friend invite so that you guys can get connected and to continue to make more friends on the internet and to continue to strengthen the grid. You can find the after party hangout at facebook.com/ParadigmShiftRadio. It's already posted there, so you can already join the hangout. And what we are going to do is, Laura, if you're okay, I'd actually like to just run the show a few minutes into the bonus time to just bring another caller on here and then wrap things up after that, if that's okay. That's cool with you. Awesome. So, of course, everybody, thank you for tuning in to Paradigm Shift Radio. You guys have all the websites, ParadigmShiftCentral.com. Check that out. Browse the awesome media. Check out the movies. And, of course, check out the Awake and Empowered Expo and run into Laura there. And Cosmic Gaia Sophia is Laura's website as well. I have that right, yes? Yes, CosmicGaiaSophia.com is Laura's website. So, and you can find Laura. She is on Facebook. She's got a lot of friends, but you can still follow what she is up to. And she does some other blog talk radio show work of her own, and you can also find out about that through her Facebook. So, literally 40 seconds in the show, a reminder, again, if you want to be involved with the continued conversation, this is an invitation for you to practice talking about the things that we don't normally get a chance to talk about, which is exactly what we're doing here tonight. So just keep that in mind. There might have been some stuff that was going over your head, but essentially it's all in good fun. It's all in good nature. It's all in the name of collective education, and that's what we've been doing here tonight. So for those of you who are leaving us as we count off into the bonus show, once again, I'm Skull Babylon at Facebook.com/Skull Babylon. Thank you for listening in, and for those of you on Skype, we're going into the bonus time now. So for everybody else, we'll see you in the after party hangout, and you can watch it on YouTube. All right.
Bye.
So bye, guys. Awesome. Okay, so Matt, I would like to bring on some other callers. Matt, do you mind if we do that, and I'll just say any last words before we let you go?
I thought I was done, but okay. But I just want to know. You can tell me what you think about all that stuff I said. Hopefully later on.
All that stuff you said. Yeah, we could talk about it as a group in the chat and stuff. So, but yes, Laura, did you?
Thank
Laura,
you
was
for
that
sharing
a question?
all that. That was.
I guess. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for sharing that. So, Matt, we'll jump. Let's talk about it in the live chat some more, and we'll bring on another caller for now. So, cool. All right. Okay, Matt, I'm gonna let you go for now. So, thanks for calling in again, man. Good to hear from you. All right. I think you already stepped away. So, with that said, I'm gonna bring on just there's still people who are hanging on to the queue, and I would like to bring them on. Oh, hold on. Can you guys still hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay, I'm just not sure if Blog Talk's glitched out. Like, it's not muting Matt. Okay. Anyways, so I'm going to bring on another caller from area code 559. So, caller from area code 559, thank you for waiting patiently, and we're going to bring you onto the episode now. So, here we go. Hello, caller.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to
no
start
problem.
off by saying hello. And,
go ahead, caller, yeah.
Just want to start off by saying hello and namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks to the host of the show for having this tonight, and to Laura for speaking. I feel like your words are just empowering and nurturing my spiritual consciousness. So thank you for all that you shared with us today. And I just wanted to ask a simple question and get your thoughts, all your guys' thoughts on the Fukushima disaster and the things going on with that. And as far as, is that a doomsday scenario type, like end of Earth type thing, where it's going to affect pretty much the entire population, or is it just a hidden agenda of some sort? I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that.
Put me on the back burner. I got stuff for that too.
Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is like not a positive thing at all. I mean, all the elements have been attacked and poisoned. We're being, poisoned. And the thing is, if we allow ourselves to fall into the fear about it, and we stay in a lower density, basically, yeah, we will be affected by it. But we're in a shift time right now, and when we shift into these higher dimensional energies, the physics is different, the frequency is different. This is what the alchemy is all about. Certain frequencies can alter and change the quality and properties of things. There's all sorts of technologies, there's all sorts of things that can handle this stuff, but they're very suppressed. So if we can't handle it on a 3D level, we're dealing with a 3D collective dreamscape. Part of it's steering us down an artificial road, part of it's steering us into a different experience where there is going to be purification of these energies, because we're going to have a reflection of the purification of our own elements. Our elements are toxic. So we have to understand that when we heal our negative ego and we heal our emotional body, our mental bodies, our spiritual bodies, we in turn are healing the elements. We have to purify and detoxify ourselves for it to have a direct result and effect on the collective. And it's not like magic, things like synchronicity start to fall into place. The people that don't belong in charge end up leaving. We have to understand that we are the generator of our dream. So there's, different scenarios that we're up against. Yes, there's doom scenarios we could easily fall into, but we don't have to. Let this be catalyzing. Let it become a tool to ignite the passion of creating incredible transformation in your personal life. That's the number one thing, because we're the most important part of this process, because it's from us that we're experiencing this reality. And we're dealing with a multidimensional cosmos here, and we're also dealing with the fact that the ascension timeline did not get totally hijacked. So we have to look at this and not, go into too much fear, but we don't want to be quiet either. I mean, part of informing the masses has to do with telling people what's happening, but not leaving it at just the bad news. We have to find our solutions. We have to go inside and find what really works, and then share that information as well. Or else all we're doing is sharing fear propaganda. We have to understand that, yes, it's not a positive thing that we're facing, but we are the solution. We are advanced beings, really high DNA potential, and when we reach those levels of our consciousness, it can handle all of this. The frequency is way too high for any of this to exist where we're going. But we can easily get ensnarled into the fear and into the doom and into all that stuff, because that's why it's happening. This is where the divine feminine energy is being attacked. But what most people don't realize is the divine feminine energy comes right from source. It's the most supreme energy there is, divine masculine and feminine, mother, father, God. And that's our divine blueprint. So they want to convince us that we're much less than we are, and that we're at the mercy of everything we see at the news. So we got to know that that's not the truth. The truth is that we're far greater than that. But in order for us to reflect a different reality, we need to clean up house inside of us. We need to clean up our relationships. We need to clean up everything to be able to raise our frequency enough to shift things and to shift the landscape that's outside of us. It comes from within first. If we look at reality from outside first and then in, of course we're screwed. If we look at reality from inside and then project it out, we're on this incredible journey, and we've faced these scenarios in our ancient history before. We have cellular memories about it, and we make different agreements as far as how we're going to tackle it, just like the dark roles have particular agreements and contracts to play the dark role, but they're not necessarily dark beings either, you know. So, you know, I would just stay empowered and dig deep, and you'll find that there's a lot more solutions than you think. But if you don't and you pay attention to just the news, it's going to be completely and totally triggering fear and doom and a lot of grief. I went through that. I cried for 20 years just to get it out of my system, to not be so sentimental, because I knew that eventually it wouldn't, you know, really be a reality to hold on to what I was holding on to. And it helped me to expand into my multidimensional awareness. But I needed to detox it. I needed to release a lot of energy that was being held in the collective and in this, you know, this collective energy field of a lot of, you know, emotional energy and a lot of grief that people aren't tapping into because of all the distractions. Well, now it's hitting home and people are seeing, oh my gosh, something is really wrong. We actually are kind of screwed. But, you know, that's to kind of like shake up the people that have been unconscious for so long so they can start to access these deeper feelings and emotions, because people have been emotionally dead or numb or, you know, obsessed with things that aren't really what is so important. This is helping get people on track with what's important. But if they stay at that level, it's gonna cause a collapse. But if they look at it as a catalyst for awakening into their multidimensional awareness, then that's exactly where one wants to go, and to keep walking on that road.
Thank you so much. God dang, I took so much from that. Okay, thank you so much. And then besides just doing yoga, meditating, and you know, awakening my higher spiritual consciousness, and like you said, finding it within, and creating that peace and everything, would you recommend anything else besides just yoga, meditating, and asking yourself the right things, you know, staying positive as you can and exposing the truth to those, like you said, and kind of disturbing them to make them become more conscious and not be so unconscious and blind to everything going on around them? What else could I do, engage in that maybe I don't know about?
Well, I think that all sounds really incredible. I do session work, and I really work with people's budget. I'm not like a money-based person. So I could really spend some time with you to really look at that, look at your chart, see what your energies are about, to give you specifics about you as an individual, because we're all a little bit different. But it sounds like you're doing really, really, really good. I can't really say until I look a little bit deeper into sort of the energies that you're working with and sort of what's really happening to give you much more than that. But it sounds like you're really on the right track. And like I said, if you want to contact me, we can even do a mini reading, you know, and negotiate something based on your budget to look at the specifics of, you know, how you can step it up even more than you are now. But I think you're in a really great place from what you just said.
Oh, thank you so much. I almost feel like I'm going to cry, so thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you, caller. Caller, what was your name?
I'm
not sure if you said your name at the top. Just
Randy. My name's Randy.
Randy.
Chicago.
Awesome.
Randy.
Awesome. Thanks for calling in, Randy.
Thank you so much.
Thank
cool,
you.
Man.
Oh,
all right.
How do I contact you? I'm sorry.
I was about to say, yeah, let's make sure that you guys get connected. So go ahead, Laura. What would be the best way for people to, for anybody to connect with you? Yeah.
Right. My website, cosmicgaiasophia.com. You can message me on Facebook. My name on Facebook is Laura Magdalene Eisenhower. Yeah, so that's pretty much the best. HealthyFamilyNow.com is another website, and you can come to our office, and my partner and I do combined sessions.
All right.
But I do it over the phone, too. I do individual sessions over the phone that we can do if you live far away.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Well, Randy, thanks for calling in, man. Definitely got some additional gems out of that on Laura's behalf. So thank you, Laura, as well. Randy, we'll let you go for now, and I think we got one more caller who we'll bring on, and then we'll wrap up the show from there. Is that okay with you, Laura? You don't mind?
No, not at all.
Okay, perfect. So we'll be wrapped up in literally like actually another 10 minutes, but this is like solid bonus content that we're producing here through Paradigm Shift Radio as a team. So Randy, thanks for being part of the team, man, and make sure you get in contact. You can get in contact with me too through Facebook as well, so we can go from there.
Thank you, sir. Will do.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, man. All right. Talk to you later. Cheers.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving on from there, we'll go on to the next caller, who is calling in from area code 727. So caller from area code 727, if you're ready, we're going to bring you right onto the air. Here we go. Hello, caller. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Caller, what is your name? Where are you calling from? And what would you like to bring to the show?
Well, my name is Lois, and I'm calling from Florida. And a little over 10 years ago, there was, it's called first of all, Hello from My Heart. That should be, that was the greeting I meant to introduce. It was started here in Pinellas County a little over 10 years ago, and it's called Hello from My Heart Days, and it's for September 11th through the 21st. It's a grassroots peace movement. And it's something, that's so simple in greetings and emails to just start it with hello from my heart instead of just your normal hi or how you doing or dude or whatever. And it's it's a grassroots peace movement producing measurable results. And it started, like I said, just in, Pinellas County here in Florida. And people have gone up to New York City and are practicing it on, like, Good Morning America with signs, and if they get asked with a microphone in the crowds, it has grown to, like, over 1 million people globally last year. And there is welcome to hellofrommyheart.com. If you go to that site, you can actually look up the event history and see the statistics. I'll just read to you a little bit. Yes, we can be happier, healthier, and more at peace. And when we are, we change, and we change the world. As Gandhi said, if we seek change, we must be the change we seek. And there really is, I noticed, like yesterday, the difference in the way I felt saying hello from my heart instead of just hi and giving someone a hug. I know that you Skull Babylon, you give out free hugs. Just try it and see if you don't feel that difference by saying, when you give them a hug, say hello from my heart. It really does feel, you can feel the energy differently.
Yeah.
And here, greetings, these hello from my heart greetings are a simple way to be that change. I believe we are born with one purpose, one driving force we have in common, and it's about love. When we feel love, we're happier. When we're happier, we're also healthier and naturally more at peace. It is only through the experiences of life we sometimes take a few detours. We learn to stray, the distraction she's talking about. We learn what seems like justification to stray from that one purpose, that one path. As JFK said, our problems are man-made. While I don't believe in problems, only opportunities, if it follows that if we keep doing things the same way, we're going to get the same results, doing things the same way and expecting different results is Einstein's definition of insanity. Mm-hmm. So, hello from my heart. What does it mean to you? Everyone has a different answer for that, but it's really, if you go to that page, you can look up, you can read, pretty much all of it that, I could just read it to you here. But, like, here, Margaret Mead, to quote her, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world.
Change the world.
There are some people like Laura whose journey is purposed on a much larger scale. And then but everybody could do something as simple as saying hello from my heart, especially since, this is a collective effort, just like a global meditation can make a difference. This is going on through the 21st of September. So I wanted to call and first say hello from my heart, and I wanted to put that out there. If it's something that, you check out and you think, hey, this is a good thing, you can put it out on your websites too. I just wanted to put this message out there.
Awesome.
Thank
Did you have
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Lori.
Well,
I was just going to say, was there a specific question?
Laura, my question for Laura was more goes back to more of what I last said, that it appears that her journey is one of a more than a global purpose, galactical. Am I correct in that understanding?
That's how it seems to be.
Okay. And then you would agree that it's not just the ones with a galactical or a country-wise or even a whole community-wise, purpose. There are also the people who have the one-to-one purpose journey. They're just as important, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
yes.
Completely and totally. I mean, we all couldn't do this without each other. This is not a one-person job, so it doesn't matter the size of our missions. Each one of us has a purpose. Each one of us makes a difference. I mean, we do. We're all mini versions of the greater whole, and my journey is just basically comes down to expressing this to people to empower them, and that's really what it's about. And it's no greater or lesser than anybody else. I mean, we're all on even playing field when it comes to this, and our deepest purpose is to live in our truth and to call our power back and to embrace our sovereign free will and to live in the highest integrity. And
what, I'm going to interrupt you 1 second. What the purpose of my call to say hello from my heart and to make you aware of this, project is because, okay, even your journey had to start with changing yourself inside first, right? You couldn't go on the whole journey of being such a great, effective tool, really, on a collective consciousness if you hadn't fixed inside yourself first, right? So everybody has to start with that journey inside. And this hello from my heart, to me, it's like the foot in the door for the closed mind. I don't care if you are climbing the social ladder and you're like I got to get to my job at 9 a.m. and I got to bust my butt, and you're in this whole other mindset. Even someone like that really couldn't deny, hello. They may say, oh, that sounds stupid, but that's about the worst thing they could say about, hey, just try it. Say hello from my heart instead of just hi. And I promise you, when you guys start doing, even just now, I got chills and smiled. It puts a smile on your face. I don't know, maybe it's because you feel a little silly at first, and I believe it's good to laugh at yourself. So, but
definitely.
Try it a few times, and this is like, to me, this is like, okay, I have two sons, and I have one who's much more open-minded than the other, and so this is something that both can do easily. It's not so out of the norm for someone, it won't create fear, in other words, in the person. When you first are opening up somebody's mind to some of this stuff that's so different, fear is what usually slams the door shut in your face. So this is just nothing to be scared of. And there was one other point, and I wanted to ask Laura how this fits into her thing, because I've been noticing a lot and thinking about and asking a lot of people. It seems to me that all life organisms on the planet adapt to the environment, but it seems to me that humans are always trying to adapt the environment to them. And what you were saying about the alchemy actually changing is that we need the awakening in order to first open our minds that maybe we can adapt to a different environment. Does that make sense to you, Laura? You were talking about the alchemy, that when, as Gaia corrects itself, things are balanced, things evolve and go on, that we too, I know also, that the cells of our bodies, all of it is able to survive any kind of catastrophe, but it's the data that has been entered into our minds that tells us, no, it isn't. Like radiation is going to kill you. The cells know better than that, right? So as part of that alchemy that you were talking about before, that, these things aren't positive, but it's nothing to fear. So part of that alchemy is that about humans adapting to a different environment, whether it be dimensional or not?
I would say, yeah. I mean, there might be a different terminology for it, but not really. I mean, that's kind of the basis of alchemy, but alchemy more on a consciousness level, which adjusts the physical, because when we're orientated towards our lower chakras and we're functioning in fear, survival, and emotional distress, we're kind of in an inversion, and we're allowing the physical world to be dominant over us, which means that it's easy to catch illnesses, it's easy to feel like a victim, it's easy to go into survival about our money situations, and that's kind of an artificial programming, because that pulls us into having the physical be in dominion over us or dominating us. When we orientate ourselves towards our higher self... I don't know if I would
say it was artificial or
wait, I'm not done.
The journey down.
Sorry,
you were
Lori.
talking about the journey down, into the
lower
lower world.
Program, right. Not necessarily artificial, but the programming to keep us locked in that is artificial. Because if we were to really access our intuition, we wouldn't put our attention on our lower chakras. We would be expanding into the greatness of our spirit, and we would understand that spirit is actually more powerful than the physical. And when we connect to that energy, then we're able to co-create, and we're able to move energy in the physical, and I wouldn't say manipulate it, but we can materialize things. We can create miracles. We can so it really depends on our orientation. And I'm talking about
I've had the miracles actually happen. So I'm definitely not arguing with you. I'm trying to come at it more from a perspective. You're coming at it. Your
Sorry,
journey.
Lori. I was just gonna say, Lori, we're gonna need to wrap this up in the next next couple of minutes.
What could an individual do? That's the question. On a very small, simple, what's the simplest thing you could think of that somebody could do in their everyday life, without having to journey or, completely cleanse themselves the way that you did? For your everyday Joe? Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
Well, if you find yourself going into fear and going into those lower responses, understand that the energies that pull us into that zone are kind of artificial. That's the artificial part, not the fact that we have this lower inversion energy. I mean, that's a part of us. But it's not supposed to be taking the helm. It's not supposed to rule us. It's supposed to...
Can you affect someone else? What's the simplest thing? Like if you see
Lori,
you say hello to somebody.
Laura.
I am trying. You're talking to somebody, and they keep trying to take the conversation down that road of fear. What is the simplest thing that you can do?
I'm trying to answer, but you're cutting me off.
Sorry.
Sorry.
So basically,
Go ahead.
but no worries, because it's hard when we're on radio. We're not face-to-face.
Oh, yeah, this is all practice.
So if you find yourself triggered into those emotions or into those reactions that cause constriction or physical pain or anxiety, to remember the greatness of your spirit and to think love and to have a little bit more detachment, to find a sense of humor, and to not take it like all so personally, and start to realize that we are highly, highly creative beings. We have incredible power and energy. And if we can start to utilize that and allow that to be our reaction and response, and allow it to trigger us into that remembrance of who we are, rather than the fear of what we're not able to overcome, which would be helplessness and powerlessness, then we can shift things. Because, I mean, I know I probably, created this grand tale of my life, and yes, it has been that, but on the simplest of levels, I have to do maintenance like everybody else. So I get triggered, and it's easy for me to look at the news and to go, oh my goodness, but I allow it to serve me, I allow it to be a tool, and the minute that energy hits me, I all of a sudden remember the greatness of my spirit, my co-creative energy, and the fact that my thoughts, my frequency can affect change, because spirit is more powerful than matter. And if we lose sight of that, then we allow ourselves to be at the mercy of everything that we're hearing and everything that we're seeing. So it's
by holding my own frequency in that place that you're telling me, I'm triggered, and I come back to my place of, knowing my true self, then a natural effect of that is that the people or the life situation that triggered it in the first place will be affected simply by my presence.
Yes, because we affect everybody. We know that when we walk into the room with negative energy, people feel it, people look at you, and people feel uncomfortable. When people are radiating positive energy, people smile. I mean, we have a direct effect on our environment. It ripples out. And so if people have a tough time, if they're kind of caught up in it, you know, and they can't quite flip the switch and get into a higher, you know, positive way of thinking or find their balance, you know, walk around barefoot, you know, give yourself something, because a lot of people get triggered into self-destructive tendencies, addiction. So instead of grabbing that beer or that alcohol, you know, grab a drink that's good for you. You know, replace things with, replace the negatives with the positives. But understand neutrality also, because the positives and negatives play off of each other. If we get too high, we end up crashing. If we go too low, we end up, you know, chasing, you know, something that is idealistic to try and pull us out. But we have to understand how to work with both the light and the dark.
Yes,
and
that's what I was asking, how to work with the dark in a simple way, and simply holding your own frequency or coming back to your own frequency, raising it. And I'm going to throw this last thing in, and I'm going to say goodbye. It'd be great if you did I'm not expert enough at it, Skull Babylon, but if you research it and you find someone who is, boy, would I be glued to my phone for that whole thing. Vibroacoustic therapy.
We can get into it, definitely.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yep. It's something I mean, miracles have been happening in my life, and I am going to be working with it. I actually have a system called the Extreme Serenity System, and I am just like flying so high with it. And I mean, I've done 1 or 2 sessions in it to myself, and I knew after this one session with, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, solfeggio frequencies.
Yep.
It's actually where you physically get massaged, not by the vibration of what you're laying on, but by the sound frequencies coming through the amplifier. So you have your audio sense and your tactile sense responding to these frequencies. And you talk about a chakra alignment, you talk about the whole 9 yards. It is
it'll definitely connect with it.
Unbelievable. So. I'm like, oh my God, yeah. So I love, like I said, I'm not expert enough at it yet, but if I know,
there's people who are.
You research a lot of stuff, yeah.
We can definitely bring them on.
That'd be great.
Okay. Oh, well, thanks for calling
Thank
in,
you.
Lori. Once again, it's a pleasure to hear from you, and thank you for contributing.
Sorry I kept you so long. Thank you for letting me go on.
It's all for a reason, and no doubt there are people who are listening to this who are getting value out of it. And I mean, for me personally, like I'm at this point, I'm a little tired having gone through the conversation that we've gone through with the show. So I commend anybody who's listening to this episode, and just to remind you to take breaks. Obviously, a lot of this stuff may be a little overwhelming, but just continue to breathe and take it step by step. And with that said, I think it's about time that we wrap up the show. So Lori, I'll let you go for now. So thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
With us.
Yep.
All right. Take care.
You can mute me. Yep.
Okay. By the way. Awesome. Okay, so let me just, Brianna was on mute. I'm just going to unmute Brianna, and we'll just wrap up the show here with some final notes.
Yay!
One key thing that I heard just recently, and I think this will resonate with people, and it relates to the idea of like law of attraction and everything like that. But it's this idea that sometimes people think that you need to see something in order to believe it. But in fact, it's actually the exact opposite. Whereas you need to believe something before you can see it. So just to sort of keep that in mind, in people sort of like starting to explore these new topics and starting to explore themselves and to open up to some of the multidimensional experiences that are within our innate nature. So that was just one thing I wanted to say, and obviously just to remind people to do what you can to find center within your everyday life and to connect to your breath, and to continue to do what you can to bring more love and light and inspire and elevate all of those around you. And that's really what this show is about. So Brianna, I'll just pass it over to you. Any final words to go out on?
Well, other than the usual, I hope everybody has included this into their DNA, and that they do a meditation on everything that we talked about, because it was a lot of information. Also, like programming does start at the basics of what you put into your body, including, through your 5 senses, your 6 senses, and the multiple senses that you have. So remember that food you eat, all the way up to the music you listen to. They all got to be high vibes and natural and holistic and healthy. So stay healthy, stay light, and don't give up the fight.
You said it. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay. Go ahead, Laura. Some final notes to go
Yeah,
out on.
I was going to say, the food thing is extremely important, and remember that energy is like food, so don't pack on too much than you can handle. And I just posted something about making sure you take your energetic trash out once a week because, enlightenment is about maintaining it, not attaining it, because we already are enlightened, but a lot of stuff ends up junking up and covering it up, and if we don't take out the trash, then we lose sight of what we already are.
Perfect. All right. So with that said, we'll wrap up this extra long bonus extended episode of Paradigm Shift Radio. And of course, you already know the main websites. I've mentioned them earlier. And if you would like to help the production of more consciousness shifting media, you can donate directly to the support of the Paradigm Shift Radio for the blog talk radio costs and the production time involved behind it. And ParadigmShiftCentral.com/donate is the place to go. Or you can check out the, again, Paradigm Shift Plus. So ParadigmShiftCentral.com/PSR Plus to get some access to some of the additional bonus content that will be coming your way and also help support the show in doing so. So with that said, everything's coming to a close here, and thank you everyone once again for tuning in, and thank you Brianna for being here and helping steer the ship. And thank you so much, Laura, for especially for staying a little bit extra and spending some time. I know even, for Randy and for Lori, that meant a lot to them. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be on the show. I've really enjoyed it. And thanks to listeners and everybody.
Yeah, and
I know it's a lot, but it'll start to probably assimilate over time, and you'll see. Right. Just let it, lead you to discover a lot of this on your own and make what you will out of it, and be a free thinker.
Yeah. So merely by listening to this episode, those ideas, even if you don't fully process it all within this very moment, even just listening to them, it does bring it into your mind, into your subconscious, into your being. So it's there, and just let it sit there for a while, and over time it will continue to connect with the bigger picture and help you understand your potential within this reality, and reminding you that you can do so much to be the change that you want to see in the world. So with that said, thank you everybody for tuning in to another awesome episode of Paradigm Shift Radio, and on behalf of Brianna and Laura, we're just gonna say goodbye. Oh, it looks like Laura just dropped. So Brianna, let's just say farewell to the internet as we play out the closing music here. So thanks again, everyone. Bye, bye, internet.
Goodbye.
Bye. All right, next time. See you then. Thank you for listening to another episode of Paradigm Shift Radio. If you enjoyed this show and would like to experience more shift within your day, then please show your support and consider joining the Paradigm Shift Plus membership at ParadigmShiftCentral.com/PSR Plus. Thank you.